Hello, welcome to the listening show you can listen to. Such a struggle to say that correctly. I'm always about to say the watching show. Quick plug, watching show, same exact thing with a bit more stuff. A bit more. It's us playing video games. But anyway, this is the part of this show when we talk about more likely absolutely nothing. Whatever we want to talk about. You and me, Zach, we're going to pretend to be friends. You'll have to act.
Do I get paid?
No.
Oh, man.
You do not make anything on this.
So what incentive do I have to be friends with you?
Well, you get to use your time.
Okay.
And you have to put effort into it. That's the exchange.
Hey, seems fair to me.
Because it's an exchange.
Yeah, it is. It's an exchange.
It's an old joke. Anything on your mind that you feel like diving into? Because if I have any preference, it's I want to talk about something in particular.
About something?
Yeah.
I don't know. The first things that come to mind aren't very uplifting.
Yeah, I get it. That's fine. I mean, well, I should say it's fine. I'm interested in non-uplifting topics. I realize most people may not be, but I'm up for it.
Well, I don't want to talk about non-uplifting things.
But those are my favorite. I know I'm selfish.
Well, what ones are you thinking about? I definitely don't want to talk about the ones I'm thinking about.
Let's do this. Let's briefly title our non-uplifting topics, and then between them, we will decide which one we'll talk about.
Oh, geez.
So you don't have to like put your nose on it. Just say generally. So generally what the topic is without being too immediately revealing. So relationships is vague enough, but you might be thinking about something more specific. The nature of life is pretty vague, but like down that road, you might have a specific thought, so you may reveal topics that way.
Yeah, I think that actually might be generally what it is.
Yeah.
It's something more vague and all encompassing and encumbering, if you will. It's just sort of life.
You mean your specific thing that you want?
It's my specific thing is very not specific. It's very general.
Okay.
It's like,
well, what would be so bad about a non-specific topic?
Nothing. No, I guess it wouldn't be bad for the show in particular, but it's not exactly like
you just personally don't want to be not jovial right now.
Oh, well, it's not about one. It really is. I feel the moral obligation to send positive energy out, and I'm not like a big energy guy, but I do know that complaining poisons and stuff, and I don't want to complain. It would be cool to talk about like not happy things observationally, but I don't know that I'd be able to be very objective right now.
I get it. And ironically, that is a topic in and of itself.
Okay.
If you want to
go for it,
flounder on this, the topic above your topic. So the idea that, because I totally understand and to a degree, I believe what you're saying. If you're going to put anything into the world, it may as well be positive, because one of the things I say is there's enough suffering in the world. So why would you choose to have someone spend an hour of their time, a listener, listen to something negative, because you're not really helping as much as you would be talking about something positive.
Yeah.
Inversely, the argument would be, well, you have a responsibility to deal with things as they are. Not everything in life is good. Sure, I get both sides, and I still struggle with that. So, for example, my YouTube channel, I would prefer that everything makes people laugh. That's what I'd prefer. Would it be possible to make content that's not happy and entertaining? Yeah. Still, I would choose to make people happy if I can. But it's a struggle sometimes, because sometimes you really want to talk about stuff that is just down, because that's just the way life is. But so the question I've been having is, what responsibility do I have to my viewers to make them happy, specifically? To feel positive energy. That's the most vague yet specific thing.
Because I know you don't mean happy specifically.
Yeah, because happiness is like,
right.
You can just, but with the vague enough term like positive energy, we know what we're talking about.
Right.
So I get that, and I haven't made a decision. Do you have anything to say about that? What was the word? Floundering topic?
Well, like you could almost imagine it sort of, I'm going to lose the word. Like archetypically, you can imagine it that way, where it's like you can inhabit the spirit of the ideal, or you can inhabit the spirit of the malevolent, And, that's speaking in super broad and artistic terms, but you could say like complaining is like you actually inhabiting like this animus that's a malevolent animus. It's like it's only sharing. It's only you get what I'm trying to say. It's like it's pushing that forward. It's the old Native American proverb of whichever wolf you feed is the one that will devour you. The good wolf and the bad wolf. And anyway, so if you give all your thoughts to complaining and to down thoughts necessary, then that wolf, that spirit, that archetype can devour you. It's not, or in biblical terms, it's you're inhabiting a Christ-like behavior as opposed to a worldly behavior. I think that those would be the kind of, the polar,
or the fruits you bear are indicative to who you are. So if you just dwell on negative things, you're a negative person.
Yeah.
As far as an answer goes, I'm conflicted in that the way I behave or act would indicate that I believe in being positive only. As far as my YouTube goes, that's specific. But personally, if I tend to land on the both thing quickly, generally, what would your answer be as far as do you put out positive energy or negative energy? Because my belief, and I say that because I don't actually practice it, is both should be acted upon in the best way. Because sometimes you have to address negative things. I don't think either of us think that you should be all negative. I'm not even sure both of us think, and I don't think this, that both of us think you should always be positive. Sometimes it would be tasteful. I can't think of a specific example, but I'm sure this is the case. Sometimes it would be distasteful to not address something negative.
Sure.
So the question for me comes down to more of how much negative, but I think you need both. So anyway,
I think I should clarify. I'm not in a bad mood at all. I don't.
no,
I don't gather that from
think
you.
that you were. No.
Yeah,
no.
it just is sort of like, I don't know.
And you don't have to be in a bad mood to talk about negative things.
Sure.
You don't have to. Yeah.
No, I don't have any particular reason to be. So a thing that I've been kind of thinking about and wondering is like there's a presumption in the how much bad energy should you put out there, and that's the presumption is that you have to put something out there. For example, that's sort of like another question that you could get into, and then you have a moral obligation of like, well, what do I owe the world as far as like do I have to put things out there? And the answer is obviously no. I guess the way I kind of see it is if you're saying anything at all, it might as well be the truth kind of thing. And so it's like, well, you don't have to choose to say anything, but if you do say something, it should be truthful or should be positive, not necessarily only positive blindly, but maybe joyful despite the bad. I don't know.
I'm thinking about that in a very specific example. So for example, honey says, make my butt look big. Now it's your turn to speak. Or does this make you look fat? So based on the principle, which we haven't decided what those are for us, if this was someone you actually cared about, being honest with yourself, how would you answer that? Would you not answer? Would you?
I know how
lie?
I'd answer that.
Right.
Easy.
Assume that worst case scenario, it specifically makes you look fat.
Yeah.
How do you think you would actually answer?
Well, that one's easy for me because I know how to be flattery with my insults. And so I'd be like, hell yeah, it makes it look fat. Like, I like that fat ass kind of thing. That's what I would do. And, I could pull it off.
I'm for it.
I like
that answer.
Cause it's like, yeah, it does.
But you wouldn't.
I wouldn't be like, yeah, it does. You fucking lard tub of fat lard. You fat.
You wouldn't default to deception just to make her feel better. You couldn't just go, yeah, because I feel like I couldn't do that. Yeah. I don't know what the alternative is other than not answering but your answers, I like your answer quite a bit. That was just a specific example as far as how you might operate that way. But if
let's take it to the extreme. Let's take that example to the extreme.
Okay. Do you have an extreme example?
Little kid is sick and is dying, and he asks, "Am I going to be okay?" And he asks you, and the answer is no. What do you say then? Like that feels like
I don't say no, but I assume I would just tell him the best possible. How do I say this? The positives of not being okay.
Yeah,
this is what happens when you die, and this is the good things about every. But no, I would not lie. I would just not lie.
Yeah,
anything other than that. So what you said as far as hell yeah, it makes you look fat isn't a bad lie. It's not a lie. Anyway, worst case scenario. I can't think of a worse one. That's a good one. Where it's less about how it is about how they feel.
So
which is it comes back to
let's
what do you owe people?
Yeah, that's true. So in that case, like there's some weird moral gray area because and from an existential standpoint, it's not so scary to die because everybody does it kind of thing. But from a personal standpoint, it's obviously super scary. And so with the kid, it's hard for them to extrapolate and to like think in existential standpoints. Like it's very hard to,
and they're innocent. And they don't deserve, undue suffering.
Who knows, it's all too complicated for us to answer that complicated of a question to a kid, but they're asking and you feel as though they're owed your best answer.
Yeah. I mean, that's specifically because if there's an old man who asked that question, you wouldn't feel as compelled to make them feel good about it as a child inherently.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Sorry, were you going somewhere?
I just don't envy people who have to make tough choices like that. You know? Man, you'd be a tough person if you got used to answering those questions. I don't know. I just think. Well, for example, in that scenario,
between us, I don't think neither of us go to the truth only and always straightforward. It's too cruel sometimes. So you're, of course, you look fat. I mean, I think we, at the very least, as of the way we operate, try to navigate into a more tactful answer, which I guess lends to the idea that the right way to act is in the middle. But I don't know. It's like you said, we're never going to be able to.
Well, and I like the way the Bible describes telling the truth because it doesn't say telling the truth. It says act in truth a lot of times. Like I'm sure it does say, tell the truth at times, but it uses a lot of, at least in passages that I'm thinking of, it uses a lot of terminology. And I hope I'm not paraphrasing wrong, but the idea you get is that you live in the spirit of truth, because that's where God lives. That's kind of the idea that the Bible conveys when it talks about speaking the truth in love. And it's pretty, it's pretty specific that those two are in tandem, because it even has a part where it differentiates the two. Like truth without love it's something, I can't remember what it says exactly, but I should probably refresh my memory on the Bible. I should probably refreshen up my memory of the Bible. Before I go preaching, I just rememberizing.
Yeah, compound words. It's
a good compound word. I don't know, but you get the idea. It's like it's because it's telling the truth isn't always exactly, it's never as easy as just telling the truth. It's usually tied up with a lot of things, and so it's like living in the truth that doesn't necessarily mean telling the exact truth, but it does mean, I don't know. Could you parse the difference out between those two things?
Apparently not.
No? Does it sound like I'm saying stupid stuff?
No, I understand.
I'm just trying to
explain it any better.
You know how smart people can just do surgery and separate things and explain why?
Yeah.
Like in my head, it makes sense to say living in the truth is different than telling the truth. Because living in the truth is like a series of choices and that elevate you to like a different, not literally elevate you, but it's like it clears your path of the debris of lies. Mm-hmm. And so even when you encounter a situation where telling the truth isn't maybe the moral or good thing to do, it's the debris is not going to trip you with the simple lie. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm not trying to say lying is ever good. I just know that
since we operate technically in a gray area, I bet there's an area where we would disagree, and I think this might be one. I think I asked you, don't think about it too hard. It's not a trap or anything. I think I asked you about telling your kids about Santa, and you said you'd tell their kids they're Santa, right? Was I wrong?
No, I wouldn't.
Okay. Well,
I'd obviously tell them what he is, but
okay. I wouldn't either. But if you did, I wouldn't think you were morally bankrupt, because you're operating in a gray area for me. But for me, it's a simple decision. Like, no, it's not real. I'm not going to lie to my kids.
Right.
But at the same time, I wouldn't hold you as contemptible. So that was an example I thought of.
So here's the other thing about that kind of lie is it's more of like a storytelling kind of thing. And, oftentimes stories are just they're certainly more useful than the truth at conveying things.
Well,
and
sometimes they are true.
The reason I have a problem with the Santa one is because you're being a lazy parent. It's like that whole story got adopted to mean be good. Otherwise you're not going to get presents is what that means. And then you had to create this like character who would deprive you of those presents if you chose to be bad, like that. That's maybe it's reducing it a little too much, but that to me, that's just lazy parenting.
I never thought of it that way, but the idea that you're going to abject your responsibility as a parent and put it on a fictional person.
Yeah.
So that if you are punished for being bad this year, it's not my fault.
Right.
Which, I would see that as more morally reprehensible, but I saw it as superficial lie. It's the magic of Christmas. You're going to be happiest as a child believing this for a few years. I want you to be happy. It's going to make you feel good. Therefore, I will lie to you about it because I've decided that the hurt pain of finding out that it's not true will not be greater than the joy that you will have experienced believing the lie. Therefore, it's justified.
I see. Yeah.
That's how I always saw it. And
it's fantastical and all that.
Yeah. So I never saw it as how could you lie to your kids like that? But like, why would you lie to your kids?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Well, let me tell you,
saw it.
That being said, though, I have a problem with that kind, but I'm going to lie to my kids all the time. But I'm going to do it in jest. Like, how like, of course zebras can fly, stuff like that. And then when they're like, no, they don't, I'm going to be that kind of dad if I get to be a dad. I just am saying, like, I'm not going to lie about anything serious or things that aren't
provable immediately to show that what you said was absurd.
Well, and I don't even mind having that kind of lie where it takes them a few years.
For a few years.
Yeah. Like, but because that makes for funny stories later on. And it's,
I guess it's interesting that you say that because I come from almost the exact opposite place. My grandpa used to do that all the time. Mm-hmm. He'd make up stories about himself that I believed were true for a long time. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because after the fact, after I figured out or learned that they were made up, I thought back to the pleasure he got out of telling those stories. Yeah. So what's funny is as a kid, I shouldn't say it hurt my feelings, but I was more like felt betrayed kind of a feeling. Why would you lie about that?
Oh, really?
As I got older, it became more of, I would do that. Yeah. So I don't know if it's because I've become more distance from being the victim, closer to being the person who would be the perpetrator. Mm-hmm. That's probably all it is. Maybe it is on the other side coming from more of an understanding of morals. Mm-hmm. So anyway,
well, to me,
my opinion on that changed. As a kid, I felt that about it. Now I'm like, I would love to lie to kids.
And to me, it's technically, I'm calling it lying to kids, but it's more accurately
it's superficial.
a game.
It doesn't.
Well, it doesn't matter that it's a lie because like when
it's a story.
Part of your job as an adult who nurtures and like grows children is to introduce them to the world. And if you can do it in games,
what lying is like.
Well, if you can do it in games and in ways that make positive memories, one thing that, kids a lot of kids learn a little bit too late, if you ask me, and this might be, trying to like pat myself on the back for the idea of lying to kids for fun, but like I love it could be a problem if your kids think that your parents never lie, especially, I don't know, like, but mostly it's the idea that people can say things that are kind of convincing and they might not be true. And so I'm going to teach you young to look out and hopefully I can have this tone when I lie so that it's Pavlov's dog and they can associate, he's goofing with us. Right. He's goofing with us and they can pick up on social cues when someone's pulling their leg. I don't know. There's all kinds of like all those small psychological tricks that you can do to help kids and playing with them like they're smarter than they are is one way.
I got two things. I'm going to try to talk about them before I forget. So as far as lying for a game, I have a moral problem with acting as far as in a social setting. I don't know if we talked about it on this show, but I don't want to pretend to be happy around people if I'm not because I feel like it's deceptive.
Creeple.
On the other end of that, what? People?
You said around creeple, But go ahead.
Those things.
Around
yeah,
Creeple. Yeah.
I pulled a Rich Evans.
Yeah.
I just set this down on my folding table.
Yeah.
But inversely, if I have problems with acting in general, however, if it's within a film or a movie or a show, not YouTube, but like a film, where the context shows it is specifically, it's fake or not real going in, I have no moral problems with doing anything there. But if it's anything in the real world, and then YouTube becomes gray for me because people who watch me on YouTube see a real person, because I am a real person. And it's hard to sometimes as a YouTuber differentiate between an act and a person. So that's why I don't like it. Anyway, so as far as the games, movie is the only safe place where I think it's okay to act, and I'm still working out the morals of that. Number 2, something I wanted to unpack. Fun question, not really. Can you think back to how old you were? Because you said something dangerous or bad would be believing your parents are never capable of lying, something like that. What'd you say?
Something to that effect.
Your parents are always telling the truth. Can you remember back to the first time, age-wise, roughly, when you realized, oh, my parents aren't perfect?
I think I knew that pretty young.
Okay, well, that's good.
Yeah.
But how young do you think you were? Like 6?
I think I was younger than that. Like, I mean, parents are, I don't know. Like, they'd fight sometimes. It wasn't like bad, but, it was to the point where people would be like, oh, they're fighting and we're not supposed to fight, so they're being bad. Mm-hmm. That was it's an easy correlation to make if you've been told, like, the right thing is to not fight.
So, did I make the number 6 or did you say 6?
You said 6.
Okay, so what would your...
I don't know. It doesn't really matter. That was pretty young.
Okay, well, I guess it doesn't really matter.
So, because I want to go back to this, do you want to jump off of that?
Yeah, I wanted to...
Okay. I want to go back to the other thing you talked about, movies and acting.
Okay.
But go ahead.
I think I can remember that. So, me thinking about it, because you mentioned the whole dangerous to believe that your parents are perfect. I thought that for a long time. And I thought all parents should be perfect. Everybody should be perfect. I'm being a bit extreme there. But I thought that for a long time. I think the very first indication was when they were having some kind of argument, like in this more or less in the same room, just the other side of the room, not loud, just disagreeing. And it was like quiet contention. And then it resolved in a little makeup and a little kiss. I was like, oh, my parents are great.
Yeah.
That's what I meant. That's what I mean by the closest sign of. But I wasn't until maybe 11 where I was like, something's wrong with my parents or one of them, whatever, but I won't accept it. It was, and that's the danger, I think, or one of the dangers of looking up to somebody that way. But yeah, I thought it was an interesting thing you said about it's dangerous to think your parents are perfect. Inversely, though, as a parent or for your parents, you would like them to be as perfect as possible. I think I was lucky for a long time.
Yeah.
But what would you prefer? There's another end of asking this question. Would you prefer that you knew younger or later? It's like the Santa thing. How much blissful ignorance would you like? Because I liked what I had. I don't think I'd change it.
I don't know. I think that parents who give their kids an inaccurate representation of how the world works or how they work or how even themselves, the kids, work is like they're doing their kids a disservice because they're preparing your kids poorly for the world. That's like your job as a parent is preparing for the world.
Yeah. Well, quick note. I thought to say this, but I don't remember my parents ever saying, I have to think about it. It's not coming to mind. I never remember them at any point while sitting me down saying, I'm not perfect. Now, I very specifically am positive they never said I am perfect, but I don't remember them ever saying I'm not perfect. I'm just doing what I think is right. Nothing like that. I'm not saying they should have or shouldn't. It's actually an interesting question as a parent. Like, do you instill doubt in your kids as the role of leadership? But anyway, did your parents, I would assume based on the fact that if you saw them disagreeing so young, I think a good thing as a parent would be just to say, hey, mommy and daddy fight, as an example.
Oh, yeah.
Things like that. Because
my parents were always
I didn't get that till much later.
Yeah, my parents were always really honest with us kids. They did They did a good job with that. And I mean, they definitely weren't perfect, and they had a lot of conversations with us about, hey, we make mistakes and we all do, and then this is what we do when we do that, and we make sure we apologize like this, and they set a pretty decent example overall. They didn't do everything right, but
it's weird because I'm happy for you, and I wouldn't be upset if I had that, but at the same time, I wouldn't want to give up the years that I had. I think it's just because of my personality. I'm kind of an ignorance is bliss person in a lot of ways. So I'll just
really.
Oh yeah, in some ways. I have a very specific thought on it. It's hard to explain, but if you want me to explain it, I can. If not, we can let it go.
Well,
as far as being ignorance,
I'll tell you what I think the problem with giving an inaccurate picture of how the world works or how people work as like to kids. Like if you deceive your kid forever, when they realize the truth. Like you can lose a lot. Like
a lot of trust, you mean?
Trust, you can actually lose a lot because if you go out into the world thinking one thing and you've bet all your emotional energy or your time on the fact that this is how the world works and then it doesn't work out for you, you can actually lose a lot. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure I could give examples, but even like your parents giving an inaccurate portrayal of themselves and then realizing, at 12 or whatever age you might realize something like that, that's not the case. Then you can really harbor some bitterness, for them lying to you essentially. I don't know. Like, I'm not saying that's what happens with you or anything. I can see a scenario where that would happen a lot to kids though, where my dad just lied to me for years about this and this is who my dad is and not this way, or my mom is this way, or it's like, well, how could they do that? Like they must not care. I don't know.
It's deception, more specific from omission of truth, where we're not going to tell our kids about sex. That's different than lying about what sex is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So in the case that they are lying about who they are, as an example, that's got to hurt,
Yeah.
Lose trust and you lose something. I don't know what the word is.
You just lose, who knows what you lose? You could lose time. You could lose investment. You could lose friends, or who knows. You can lose social status really easily. I mean, I can think of times when like I've heard things from my friends whose parents were like, my parent used to always tell me this, and I always thought things worked like that, and when I got to school it didn't work like that, and everybody hated me because I said this dumb thing in class once. Something like that. I don't know, it's just all kinds of things. Parents, they don't know how like integral they are to everything that their kid's ever going to do. Really. It's like that. Those first,
some parents don't.
Right. Well, and it's just like, it's shocking how like small decisions can snowball with kids. I wanted to go back to,
you wanted to go back to acting in the context of film or in social settings.
Yeah, I actually I was an observation about you because I've told you this before, but this is another scenario, and I think I figured out why you don't have a problem with acting in movies and in shows and stuff, and it's because arbitrary structures. They put in rules in place that you're like,
it's a game. It's what it is.
Well, no, here's what I actually think it is, and this might be, you might hate this that I'm trying to box you in this category, but just go with me. I think that you're temperamentally more conservative because you like established rules, and you like when everything follows by those rules. And if there's not rules, you get overwhelmed, and so you'll create rules. Or maybe you don't get overwhelmed, but you're more comfortable where rules are established. So even like when we're doing a show or something and we make a joke, you'll say, oh, and every time this happens, this has to happen. And I like those jokes because I'm like, yeah, that's a good rule for that. But it's always you making those like, this is what we do. Or like, so we haven't said this on the show yet, but every time we're done with the listening show, there's a SD card at the back of our recorder deal.
That's right. We haven't mentioned this. We've been doing this for like a year.
Since the beginning.
Since like the very beginning.
Since the very beginning of the show. And what happened is I held out, I popped the SD card out of the recorder and I handed it over to you, and I said, really hold out your hand, Frodo.
Like you were like commenting on how hot it was.
It's like, whoa, it's hot.
This is a hot SD card.
And then you were like, hold out your hand, Frodo. And I was like, it's quite cool. And I like gave it to you. And ever since then, like the second episode, you said, what do you want me to do with my hand? And I was like, hold out your hand, Frodo. And like now, if I don't do that, you'll be like, you have to say it. And so it's because we've made all sorts of different weird variations of.
Right. Yeah.
Guess what's cool, Frodo? This. Hold out your hand.
Right here
like
in my hand.
Yeah, exactly.
Variations of the same repeating.
It's quoting that
joke.
Right, from Lord of the Rings. Anyway, but that would have never happened had you not the second episode and then the third episode said you have to say it. Like that's what you have to do.
For me, you like it.
Right.
Lucky me, but interesting observation about how you think because I'm more comfortable with structure, I force structure.
I don't think you.
How
sorry,
you said it. I
don't want to sound like you're only one thing.
It's an interesting idea.
I think you lean towards doing that. Like that's your tendency is to create structure where there is none.
That's an interesting idea. I think that's worth thinking about. The first thing you said, I agree with. Though you said you think I have a more
temperamentally conservative.
That's what you said. You said temperamentally conservative, and that is to say structured as opposed to liberal, meaning non-linear, or free-flowing. Yes, personality-wise, I am a structured, organized person. I agree with that, if that's what conservative means and all that. But the idea, well, okay. Interesting, worth thinking about.
And you more than most people that I know, that's not to say you're like politically at all conservative. I don't know what you are politically.
Or that
I just mean
temperamentally conservative in all things, just for the most part. It's
and you also see things a certain way, and you've always seen them that way. And it's been like the things that you've learned that
some things.
Well, and the things that you've learned that are counter to what you originally thought really took you for a tailspin. When it happened.
That's a good way of, making your point. Is the things that I changed my mind on were very difficult things to change.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like you've found like this pattern of things that works and you stick to those things. And when you don't, and I don't know if this is the case all the time, but if you don't have a structure or something, then you don't do very well. And that's not to say that you don't do well when there's not structure.
More specifically, I could agree with the inverse end being I do better with structure. Not that I don't do well without it, but yeah, I'd agree.
Right. That's probably more accurate.
Just a personality type.
And that's very different from me because I can't structure anything to save my life. Mm-hmm. And you get frustrated with me because you're like, all you have to do is make. Well, you don't really get. You don't.
I hope I don't get frustrated because I like to think that I can understand and accept differences like that. So, for example, how we organize our stuff, we're different. Like you'll have trash in your car. I will never have trash in my car. That's a difference. Mm-hmm. But I hope I haven't said you shouldn't have trash in your car. Take your trash out of your car. Do what you want with your stuff.
Right.
That's a personality. It's like I think I defended you to my family at dinner once, something to the effect, I said, Zach, his room's usually like kind of a mess. He doesn't usually make his bed, but it's a style, I said. And like, it's not a style. They said like, no, like messy is a style. And I get it. Like, I don't hate it. And it doesn't matter what I like. It's just everybody's different. And I make my bed every morning or I wash certain clothes, whatever. Mm-hmm. It doesn't bother me that it's different. Anyway, I hope that I'm not.
No, you don't judge me if that's not what I mean to say at all. It's more that I think that both I recognize in you the utility of, wow, his structure really helps him, when like if I don't have external motivators, I won't get stuff done usually. And sometimes the external motivator is myself in some backwards way, but
and again, it's not about right or wrong. Mm-hmm. Your style, that's not the right word because that's more about like clothes or something. Wasn't proclivity. What was the word you said? Conservative. I think it was a long P word. Anyway, your way of being probably helps you. So, for example, you're a very creative person. I'm sure it's nice to have for you your stuff wherever. Maybe it helps you think about different things, or like in a work setting, if you're in your office, maybe that just works for you. So fine. It's not like there's one right way. I don't think so. At least when it comes to, I'm being kind of vague. Mm-hmm. I want to say cleanliness, but that is an aspect. Like, for example, the idea that how you clean or organize your room is a representation of your mind. So you may say, well, a clean room is a clean or better mind. And I say not necessarily. Maybe his mind needs stuff everywhere. Maybe he can't stand living in a clean box, if that makes sense. Everybody's different. So I
Well,
don't see it as right or wrong.
to clarify, my room isn't always dirty.
No, sorry.
You're
I'm not
making it sound okay, but here's what is going on. I have way more stuff in my room, so it does get dirtier quicker. And sometimes, like, I don't have a regular cleaning schedule. So what you're saying is, even when my room is clean, it's busy. I think that's what you're trying to say.
Even when your room is a mess by my subjective standards, it is probably great for you.
Yeah.
And that's good for you. It's your space. So
I specifically remember being like, man, I cleaned everything this weekend. Check this out. And I like showed you my room and you're like, man, your room is so cool. It's very you. And I was like, what do you mean? And you're like, yours just like your stuff is, here. And I was like, yeah, isn't your stuff in your room? And you're like, yeah, but I don't have any stuff. So it's like I've got like books on my dresser and I've got candles and I've got things,
well, this may not be your room, but what are the cubes called? Rubik's cubes. So like, I think I was saying that specifically in the living room. I was saying these are like representations of you. You got a little bookshelf. You have your little games. You have your puzzles. You have your colored lamps. Like these are you. Like if a detective walked in and you were a suspect and walked into your apartment the first time, he's going to look at that and just get anybody really. That's their first impression. They don't even have to see you. It's a representation of yourself. I just think it's cool. Everybody represents themselves differently.
Yeah.
And you represent yourself differently than I do because you're different than I am, which
right.
I said to myself, I don't know if I've said this to anybody else. I said, thank God Zach's not exactly like me.
Oh, it'd be a nightmare.
Pretty damn boring.
It'd be a nightmare. Because one of my,
if I was, I'm better at being you than you are at being me.
Well, here's what it would happen.
We're the same person.
Right. If I was exactly like you mannerisms wise, my personality being more naturally conservative in nature, it would be great for almost everything, but we'd have one or two very vital like rules that are different and we would constantly conflict about those.
They would be a bigger deal. Right.
It'd be a huge deal. Whereas now, like the biggest problems we have now generally are something to the effect of, I think, why do you have to have a rule about that? And then you're like, yeah, it's just that's how I do it. And to me, that's silly because I don't have any rules about anything. But it's not, I don't even call it a problem. I would say
points of contention is what I call it. I was thinking, you said if we were the same person, personality wise, there'd be like two things that were really contentious. So between us as friends, there are 100 points of contention stat points to spend on our relationship. This is just really linear, but I hope he explains it.
All right.
And because we're exactly the same, all our contention points go into these two topics. We have 50 points of contention on this and this, but as we have many differences, we're not the same. We have little points of contention on so many different things. So fortunately, the pro of that is there's no one thing we're really strongly.
No.
I don't know if that example is correct, but that's how I just thought of it.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Plus, I love the video game stat point analogy. It's simple.
You do use that one.
Yeah.
It's another one of your...
one of my dumb arbitrary rules.
I have to put confinements
on
it
in
it.
blocks.
Yeah. Like, I feel like we've done a good job of complementing the good qualities of those natural inclinations we have. That's like personality defaults, I guess. I don't know what word did I use? I said you have.
Man, it wasn't proclivity. I think it was a long P word. It's bothering me.
Let me just think of it again. I'm going to tell you what I think you have. I think that your personality is naturally conservative. Nope, I don't remember what it was. I can't remember. That's frustrating. I even said it. Well, anyway, because obviously when you create more boundaries for yourself, you can get more done. You're more orderly. Like I would never have been able to do what you did when you just like started YouTube and everything, because what you did is you did another one of those things where you just, my structure is going to be this. I'm going to record this much per week. I'm going to make this many videos and I'm just going to do it consistently. And I think that almost all the YouTubers are that way, where they're like, the only way that you ever are going to get any audience is if you do something very consistently or structured and everything like that. And so you just did that. And even at the time I was thinking I could never do what he was doing before you had, a bunch of followers and stuff, but you would just do it consistently. I was like, that's just what he does, just because that's his consistent thing. Now, what that means, though, is that because you're very good at those things, it means you're not good at breaking the routine when you need to
My
or
stat
when it's
points
best.
are not spent there.
Right. Yeah.
Structured life, pretty well statted, but free thinking, not a lot of stats left in
Right,
that kind of
right.
thing. Yeah.
Well, like, because for me, like, I see the utility in not having structure, which it means I'm free to do so many things that I want to do. Like, I can go do this, I can go do this, and that's enabled me to have like I do more things socially than you, or like I mean that's
Or
a pretty
you're more
big one.
accepting of what would you call that? A immediately proposed social event. He want to watch a movie? Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to do this now? Sure.
In fact, that's what I'm enabled
Less
to do.
than I would be. I would prefer to have had it planned. For the further out, the better. So I'm mentally preparing for. I'm going to go watch a movie with him
Right.
a week at this time. That's
And
my
like,
preference.
I'm trying to think of an example of how it could be. Man, it's tough to think of an example because there's not really a bad way to be organized. I'm thinking potential.
Because then you lose out on the benefits of not being organized, like you were just saying.
Well, so I'm trying to think of. So, like, for example, if you have a structure where it's like, I'm going to diet this certain way for this amount of time or whatever, and then you have these rules for that. Obviously, it's good to have the diet if that's what you want to do for your health or whatever. But let's say in this example, theoretically in this diet, you wouldn't need to eat these particular things all the time. If someone was to approach and be like, hey, we should do dinner this week, you'd have to be like, I can't do that. I have this structure. And I think that's probably what you do generally. It's like you'd be
I'll
like,
tell you a way it's detrimental specifically as
Yeah.
it comes to diet.
I guess you'd probably know more than me.
Well, it's a specific example. Diet and exercise perfectly every day. But I couldn't exercise today. I had a good reason not to. I had an appointment and I just don't have time. Well, if I'm not going to exercise today, what's the point of dieting today?
Oh, well.
I can't maintain my structure completely, then I won't maintain it at all. I think that's an example of too much.
Yeah, well, I think I'm that way too, though, because like my thing is that I have to practice having structure, and I think I've done a decent job of that, the past 5 years or whatever. But like contrary to that, you don't necessarily have to practice having the structure. For you, you'd have to practice breaking the structure just enough to get right back into, or just enough and then getting back into it, like breaking it enough to not be controlled by the structure while still maintaining it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's tough for anybody. Like that's tough for me too. And it's easy for me to break structures, but because it's so hard for me to maintain any, I don't know. Like for example, I was exercising for like 3 months and I exercised every night and I would skip days. I'd skip a day once every month and a half or something. But then the next day I would do it. And I was like, I realized, well, because I need to do it. That's part of the structure, even though I missed it. And my mind is like, well, I missed a day. It doesn't matter for the rest of it. And I did it until I actually just couldn't do it anymore. I injured my back and I haven't done it since. I probably could start again, but.
Did you injure your back or agitate your injury?
Well, what's weird, I'll tell you what I think happened, and this sounds like I'm bragging, but I got a lot stronger and I felt a lot stronger, but it was almost like my strength in my upper body and the extra weight I was carrying in my upper body was too much for my mid back and my core. My mid back and my lower back were really hurting.
So it had nothing to do with your back injury. It's just
it did, but I mean it
not completely.
It was because it just couldn't, like the amount of reps that my upper body was doing for exercise, my back couldn't do that. My back would be the first thing that gave out. It wouldn't be my arms. So it's like, I can't even exercise to completion is like what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Like I can't exercise fully. So what's the point of exercising at all? I'm hurting too bad, which is very frustrating. It probably means I'm doing something wrong. I actually decided, not really important for the show, but I decided next time I start exercising, I'm going to focus core only, like doing yoga and crunches and stuff, because at this point my upper body's fine. I just got to get my core stronger, my back stronger. I don't know. It's very frustrating though. I remember the last 2 weeks I would just push through the pain and then I would just like shake in bed. And then finally the last day I did about like 30 push-ups, which for me is nothing. And I could not do any more because the pain was too bad. And I was like, okay, I'm actually doing something bad. I'm like damaging it. and my upper body was very strong. I was like, before like the back started getting worse, I was doing like 90 push-ups like every night, like in a row. Anyway, I don't know. I felt a lot stronger. I gained like 10 pounds of muscle. In any event, all that had to do with I had a structure and I was able to maintain it while breaking it like pretty liberally because I'm used to breaking things.
And because of your personality, whatever, you're able to go back to it after having missed a day and not seeing that as, why do the rest of the week if I've already missed? Yeah. This is something we brought up earlier. If you want to go into it, it kind of has to do with the original topic of, I forgot it was a pseudo topic, floundering on negative topics, the responsibility of talking about negative things. We'd rather talk about positive things.
Oh yeah.
So a subtopic of that would be my idea of ignorance and how I operate with it. Do you remember me mentioning that?
I remember the mentioning of it. I actually think I've talked to you about it, but
yeah, I think so. Do you want me to go into it?
Okay.
I don't have to, but it's kind of related.
I'll tell you. How about you start it, and I'll tell you if we've done it on the show before. I'll stop you.
I bet we have. I'll try to just describe it really quickly. So, am I a fan of ignorance? Kind of. If I'm ignorant about something, I don't want to know if I don't have to. But once I know something I'm not ignorant about anymore, I have a responsibility to act on it.
Yeah.
The absolute worst thing you can do is try to forego the responsibility once you've learned something. That's the worst thing, I think. So that's where I stand.
And then
which I don't know if that's right. Maybe I should want to not be ignorant about anything, but that's how I operate. Do you want to hear about? No, I don't want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
That's generally how I am. So,
well, I think if we have talked about this before, I know what I would have said, and it would have been something to the effect of, well, it's even less noble to not even risk knowing a thing that could incur responsibility. Like
I get it.
The only thing less brave than running away from a trial is to ignore
not go to trial. I mean,
is to say I'm not going to listen because I don't want to know. It's just avoiding knowing anything. You're just not living at that point, you know.
I get it, and that's why I wouldn't say I'm right. It's just how I operate.
I think my favorite hero stories, this goes back to archetypes again, because it's my freaking favorite topic, but I think my favorite hero stories are the stories where someone says, there's a monster out there and we don't know what it is, and everybody's too scared to go look at what it is. And then one person decides to go look at it and they go, oh, it's even worse than we thought. And then that person goes, all right, I'll face it. Like to me, that's the coolest hero stories. Everybody's too scared to even look, but one person looks and it's way scarier than they thought, but then they face it anyway. I just think that
my favorite story more specifically, the next part is he faces it and he fucking dies.
Yeah, he fails.
And that sounds like a joke, but it's not a joke.
Right.
So an example of that is being a German soldier in Nazi Germany, and you're going to stand up to the authorities and say, no, I'm not doing this, and you get fucking shot. I want to be those people, right?
Yeah, because then you don't have to fight.
The consequences, do the right thing. And we all like to think that we are that, but probably not even most of us are not that. Those are truly exceptional people, and they're the heroes in my head, people who go against the odds regardless of the consequences because it's the right thing to do, which a lot of us can't even be bothered to do that. So back to what you're saying, you say it'd be worse to not well, in that example, I think that makes sense. Serve your country, not put yourself in harm's way at all to begin with, not go out on that adventure. Yeah. Whereas to put my point of operation in the worst possible light, I'm a soldier in the German army, and I hear like they might be doing something bad with the Jews. And I'm like, I don't want to hear about it. I'm just going to do my job. That then, for your point, that'd be like the worst, not the worst evil, but that'd be bad, right?
Yeah.
So, and I get that. That's true.
I read this. I think it was a poem that was written in wartime at some point, and I wish I could remember specifically about it, but I'll tell you what the vibe of it was. it was talking essentially about warriors whose duty is to go face death, basically. And the poem talks about two men. It talks about the person who faces death and flees and the person who faces death and fights anyway. And the punchline of the poem or whatever it was both left injured.
Meet 'em?
No, they both left wounded.
Okay, well,
and it was
close, not the same.
Basically one left wounded and they didn't even get the pride of knowing they faced it. The other left wounded, but at least they feel pride because they I don't know. Mm-hmm. And I liked that poem. I liked that lesson was they both left wounded, but at least one of them had their pride still. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting, you know, obviously the one doesn't get wounded but they got wounded in a worse way because it's their psyche,
well,
you know.
I don't know if this is fair, but analogously, is that a word? Analogously, yeah. For me, that means as far as ignorance goes, there's only two men in that situation. Let me add the third man. He didn't go into the cave and he didn't know there was anything bad in there. He didn't know about danger. That's who I want to be.
That's a sheep.
Okay, maybe.
Yeah.
And then two is the guy who went in and saw and left. I think he's the worst person in this example. Maybe I'm wrong. That's what I mean about.
You think so?
Yeah, you can't abjugate. Once you've lost ignorance, you don't get to go back to being ignorant. You can't pretend like there's nothing dangerous there.
So there's three guys at a campfire.
Okay.
All right, three guys at the campfire. Someone says there's a cave up there. All three of them go, well, someone should go check it out. And then they all three go, yeah, someone should. One person says, well, I'm not going to. And then the other two people go, well, I'm brave enough. Even if there's a bear, I'll go check it out. You'd still pick to be the guy who's like, I'm not even going to check it out. I'm trying to
put in the best possible situation because if ignorance works like I would like it to, you don't even know that there's any danger. So not to completely ruin your analogy. Well, there is. Fine. Yeah. The two guys are going to suffer for it. And I thought about this as soon as you said a cave. I was like, if you're going to, I'm trying to make the analogy fair. I'm not trying to shoot you down, but can I put the analogy into terms and hopefully you won't disagree with it too much if you do?
Go ahead.
Okay. In this analogy, just three guys out camping, there's a cave, and one guy goes, "We should go look, see what's in the cave." And I'm the ignorant guy. I'm not interested in what's in the cave. And two guys like, "I'll go." Like, let's go look what's in the cave. And then they go, and then one of them sees the bears. Like, I'm out of here. Now the analogy would fall apart. Was where I thought you were going to go. He comes back, or the guy, me at the camp, goes, "Hey, they haven't come back. There must be something wrong." Well, now I'm not really ignorant anymore. I'm the second guy at that point. So if I could somehow make an analogy where the first guy never knows, that's what I'd prefer. I'm certain that would trouble you to know, as the person looking in on these three, that one guy is awful for never knowing about the danger.
Well, no, it's not. It's not knowing it that's noble. It's the going that's noble.
Again. Oh, it's gonna be annoying to edit. Sorry.
It's the going that's noble. It's like the people who go off on adventures, whether they retreat or not, they at least are adventurers. You never get to even be anything if you just stay. So, like, for example, and I don't think that analogy works because it's there's a cave out there. Who knows if it's good or bad? I don't think. Wait. That doesn't work with me because. That doesn't work with me because in every scenario in which you, let's say in life, we're drawing this correlative to your life now. In life, everything that you would ignore, I mean, everybody knows everything's bad. So it's like, yeah, we know it's all bad, but we don't know exactly how it's bad. And so it's like, well, at least I'm not going to go look and see how bad it is. Like that's how it's different because you already know, everyone knows it's bad. That's the thing about life is that to go out, you're going to encounter bad. Right.
Well, here's another analogy. Maybe this one works better. The problem is them reuniting. So three guys are at an airport or going to an airport. And they said, we're going to go to, it doesn't matter where. Let's go to like vacation. One guy goes, I'm not going to get on the plane. I don't care to see what's at this exotic place you guys are traveling to. I'll just stay here. And the two guys get on. Okay, well, see ya. Well, turns out there's a guy with a gun holding up the plane in the sky. And one of them does what all the other people do in the plane. They just try to hope it gets better. And then one guy tries to save everyone on the plane because otherwise they're going to die.
Yeah.
But he fails, but he tries, and everyone on that plane dies. Now, in this perfect example, because you really have to put yourself in the position of the one guy at the airport And I thought about this earlier. It technically doesn't work because he would see on the news that this happened to this plane. But in the perfect example, these are strangers, and he doesn't know what plane they got on. He doesn't know that. He doesn't know.
I'm following this, and
So
it works.
that's the one argument for.
Yeah, and it works. That does work. But in the same analogy, you have to acknowledge the fact that it's just as possible that they could get on the plane, make their destination, and you can die in a car crash on the way home from the airport.
Sure.
So it's like, one guy gets to fly a plane either way.
The two guys got on the plane. They got to have an exotic, awesome adventure. And then the one guy who decided to stay just died in a car crash.
Right.
And I hope I'm not a bad person. That's not that I want to die. But if I don't want to go on a trip, I don't have to go. It's not because I don't want to go necessarily because, the jungle you're going to might be dangerous.
Yeah.
It's specifically because I don't have an interest. Now, that's a very specific line. I was trying to put that before with the campfire as far as it's a cave. Could be fun. Could be cool. I have no idea about danger, but yeah.
I get that. And, to some degree, I see the utility in that. That actually goes to bolster my theory about you being temperamentally conservative. There it is, temperamentally.
It's T, not P.
Yeah, temperamentally conservative. But that would be temperamentally what, a more measured person would select as well.
Reserved, it's conservative.
Because for me, it's like you have the choice of going on a plane and going somewhere different than here or staying here. For me, it's kind of an easy choice. It's like, even if there's a little bit more risk, I'd rather just go do something than be here kind of thing. And, it's close because I've gotten more temperamentally conservative over the years. I'm sure I would find a way to enjoy staying here because that's what I do anyway. But
yeah, I don't think we got an answer, but let's try to jump up to the next level anyway. Can you say that any one of those three men did anything morally wrong? Because I'm willing to say the middle person who saw the danger and ran away was morally wrong, but I'm not able to say the guy who wanted
I'm not
to
going
be
to say
ignorant.
that.
Yeah, you can't quite pass judgment, can you?
Well, for me, and this is just sort of another statement about existence, it's like there's a lot of grace to be going around, and we're all literally just trying to survive. People are sitting around the campfire in this deal to stay warm because, existence sucks and stuff. So it's like, for people to make whatever choice they want, ultimately, it only affects okay, let me think about this before I say it. Ultimately, no, I don't think anyone's morally wrong for that type of decision. It's like,
Not the middle guy either.
no.
Okay, interesting.
Well, in that scenario, to me, all I see is you get to be one of these characters in a story. And it's like you get to be the character who stays home. You get to be the character who goes and sees the evil face to face and you run away and you get to live, or you get to be the guy who faces evil and you fight it, and who knows what happens to you. And it's like, which of those characters do you root for?
I get it.
And so it's like
who do you want to be?
Yeah. So to me,
it's not who are you, it's who do you want to be, which I'll shut up and let you finish before I get you off track.
Well, you basically summarized it. It's like, you can personify one of these people. Those are the three characters in this archetypical story that you hear a lot about. It's nobody. I mean, there's something to be said for those archetypes that live on and everybody admires. It's like, if everybody admires you, that's a big deal. So maybe it's something to be paid attention to. You shouldn't disregard becoming that guy if you can.
Yeah, well, now
sure.
I feel like I have to jump across. So I don't want to get into it deep at all or talk about it very long. But when I hear that, I think of, well, that is now the topic of, because I have these big questions, life questions that I haven't answered.
Yeah.
And the next one is, are you who you act, choose, or believe?
Right.
And we're saying, well, you would choose to be this guy. You'd like to be this guy. But we started that question with, who are you in this analogy? And I was saying, I am the ignorant person. That's what I prefer. You may very well be the guy who, number 3, who goes and faces danger. But that's another big question I want to get into. Which one are you? The one that history would indicate you? I have other questions I want to get into.
So actually, I think
it's a choice.
I don't think you are. I think you're all three of those people. And it's like, you have daily decisions. You can behave more like number 3, or you can behave more like number 1, or like number 2.
I'm annoyed that you said that, because that really challenges another question that I have.
Okay.
This question I have is, what's the difference between a bad person who does good things
There's no good people. Easy answer. Right.
and a bad person or a good person who does bad things? And you think that they're all the same. You think
Right.
there are no good and bad people.
Right. That's what the Bible says.
Interesting idea. I'm not saying I even think you're wrong. But that's a question that I have.
Yeah.
And I asked that because you just said
once you have good people, then you have better people, and there can't be better people and then you're gonna have a big problem if there's better people. Because if some people are better than other people, then people can start fighting. So if you have the rule that, oh no, we all suck, things go a lot better.
Well, technically, I'm not trying to be an asshole, but technically there are better people if we're all bad anyway. Like the apostles I think are objectively maybe even the tiniest bit. And maybe I should define what I say by better. Shoot, is this
so? Here's what I think.
That's even sacrilegious. God would say the apostles were more favorable in God's eyes. Maybe not. You could argue against that and say no one's more favorable. So what does it mean to be better? I don't know. Maybe there is no such thing. Maybe you're right. Maybe everyone is the same.
So I think everyone's equally bad, but those bad people can live more in truth or more out of truth, right?
You think there are bad people who do good things, and that's it?
No.
Okay, so
I don't think bad people do good things. I think bad people can do true things. And the more true things a bad person does, the closer that bad person gets to what's good.
I don't want to trap you. I just want you to clarify.
No, yeah.
So I think, are there bad people or are there no good and bad people like you said before?
Technically, my theology is that there's only one good thing, and that's God. And so you can get closer to godliness. There are no good and
bad people. We'll go back to that. Okay.
No, every good thing comes from above. That's what the Bible says. So in that scenario, we're not from above, right? We're from here. So
yeah, so you got to
so we're not good.
You got to retract the whole bad people doing good things. I think
so.
I accidentally made you go off.
So people are this amoebus mixture of things, but they're definitely not good. That's what you can think of them as. Now they can get closer to good or they can get closer to bad. That's kind of what I think of it. And I'll tell you what, these people that get closer to good, they suck a whole lot more people closer to good. That's why we call them good people.
Yeah, but
that doesn't make them good. That just makes them closer to good.
But doesn't it make them better?
No, because they can't themselves be good. They're
I'm not
just
trying
closer.
to be an asshole, but then what's the point of being better?
Well, you don't have to be
closer
better.
to God, however you want to say that. Further here,
because you get to be on that side. You get to. So if there's a magnet and this is the the plus side, the positive side, the side of attraction that sticks you together, and this is the kind that separates people. And what you can think of it as, you are the magnet that's tuned to go toward the positive side, and because you become magnetized too, and you get closer to godliness in this scenario. Godliness is the pure good. This is the good stuff. If just being close to that helps you out, kind of thing.
I don't want to get too far into it, but how do you do that? Because you can't do it by acts.
Well, by living in truth.
But acts would be a sign of. Let's like the fruit thing.
Yeah.
So I got like 3 other questions, so I don't want to take it apart anymore.
I think
interesting though. You could have chosen to say we're in a room and then there's a staircase room and people can move. We're all in the same plane. I don't know if you were doing that intentionally, but analogously, we're all in the same plane. It's just what side of the room you're going to go onto, and one side is more positive. Anyway, I have to tear that apart again.
Yeah, from a sort of what's the word?
Give me a hint, or I can't help.
Not apocalypse, but the end of the world, the end times.
Revelations?
Yeah, not Revelations, but the rapture.
Oh, rapture, yeah.
From a rapturial standpoint, you could say, my perspective, I don't even know what I think about the rapture or anything, but you could think of it as there's a room. And then getting closer to the side of God, the good side, just being closer to that side allows for when the floor drops away and this is all that's left, all these people are going to, go somewhere. I don't even know if that's how the Bible talks about that. I don't know what I think about that either. I just think that it's going to help you to be closer to this side, and it's going to help a lot of other people. I don't know. I just don't believe in good people. I think that you can just do more truthful things, or, You can be a liar.
I'll have to think about that.
Yeah, I like
It's an interesting idea. There are no good and bad people.
Well,
there are people who do, maybe even it's between, there are people who do bad things and people who do good things, but they're all the same.
yeah, I mean, you could reduce it to say, of course, people do good things all the time and people do bad things all the time. But from an existential standpoint, they are like vessels of these two things.
Yeah, maybe I'm just too orderly.
And they get to select what they intake, and then therefore.
But for me, there has to be some kind of structure because otherwise nothing matters. That's the problem I'm having. And so.
Yeah, you said it again. There has to be structure.
No, I said maybe I'm too orderly, but yeah, I'm aware of.
So what structure do you mean?
Well, if I don't want to do this too much, but if there are no good people, no bad people, and if there aren't even good or bad deeds, then why would I give a fuck about being on the positive side of the room? Because you'd be closer to God.
Well, I'm not saying there's not good and bad deeds. Don't get me wrong.
Fine. I said there's no good and bad. People who do good things, people who do bad things. These people do more good than bad. They do more good things than these people do.
I think you're doing a people-centric viewpoint. And I'm doing a goodness and badness-centric viewpoint. So it's like there's good and bad. That's the main thing. And then people, they're this other thing. They're not good or bad. They're outside that. You're talking about people, the good comes from the people, or the bad comes from it. I'm saying people are here, and the good and bad are they're water. There's bad water and good water, and these people are sponges. And if they can flop around a little bit in the bad water and flop around a little bit in the good water, and they secrete a little bit of both. And that's what most people are. But if you can get closer to this good water all the time, then you're just going to be oozing good water constantly and cleaning things up.
I don't get that analogy.
Okay, I'm trying to find.
No, you don't have to explain it again. I'm just a tad bit burnt.
You're gonna have to.
It's a good topic, but I'm just.
I think it would help you to think of not people as the center. It's like good and bad as the center, and then people are this other thing. They're not either. They can do both. Obviously, I think you're tuning out.
I disagree, but maybe I'm not understanding what you're saying, because to me that sounds like we're just avatars of a force we can't control and there's no free will.
Well, you get to decide which side you go towards. That's where you come in. You get to choose what.
Like I said before, how do you do that?
You just walk towards one and walk towards the other.
How do you walk? How do I walk towards doing good things?
So you walk towards good things by living truthfully. You do the things that people suggest.
You mean do good? And that's what I'm saying. It comes back to, for me, to do good or bad things. Because that's literally how it
Because there's a way to, it's not necessarily, you don't have to do really anything necessarily. I think doing good things is part of it, but it's like, that's secondary to walking towards, in this scenario, biblically, it's walking towards God. And, and I don't know, I hate it when people say that. It kind of annoys me, but it does make sense to me.
Well, the reason I think there's good and bad people is because, like you said, it doesn't really matter the good things you do because you can't be saved by good deeds, right?
Right.
So if good and bad deeds don't matter, then what's left? Nothing. Well, we have good people and bad people, I guess. Who are those people? The people who are saved might be good people, but that sounds way too cruel and divisive.
Yeah.
There's no example that I've come up with in my head between good, bad deeds, good, bad people that makes, it's just very complicated.
To me, it makes perfect sense what I'm saying, but that's because I'm the one saying it.
I get it.
And to me, actually, it adds up. Like the idea is it's not about people. It's like godliness is this thing and non-godliness is this other thing. And what you have is the ability to go towards one or towards the other. And the only way you do that is by getting proximity to it. And the way you get proximity to it is by literally just immersing yourself in it.
That's half the problem.
What's the other half?
Well, I don't want to talk about this a whole lot because it's just really complicated. It's like a whole hour at least. It's an hour. Going back to the beginning, what's the difference between a good person who does bad things and a bad person who does good things? So many questions in that for me. But you were saying that I think you want to live in proximity to good or God as the absolute good. Okay, or the positive sign. What do you want that to be? I have no idea how to navigate that.
Yeah.
Because I don't what is a good person? What is a bad person? Is there such such a thing? If deeds don't matter, then how can a good person be good?
You make a lot of jumps very quick with those. So
maybe it's a situation where like my questions
I just want to stop
exist
you
in my mind because but I'm not jumping in my head. I'm jumping when I speak maybe. Like I've
big jumps.
Okay, well
so like what's the first question
for me
you asked?
are all the questions I have. So and that's why I don't want to get into it. It's a lot of questions.
Yeah. But I feel like you could understand what I'm saying if I just figured out where your disconnected is. Because like the first thing
I think I could too, but it would take a long time, and I
don't think it would take that long.
I don't have time to be a good person right now.
So like your first question you asked was, what's a good person? What's a bad person? What's the difference?
What's the difference between a good person who does bad things and a bad person who does good things?
I think those don't even count.
I understand why, because there are a lot of presuppositions.
Right.
And that's part of the reason why I like it, because it's the question, because it asks more questions than it's actually asking because of those.
Yeah, but like that's the same as asking what's the difference between a yellow strawberry and an orange strawberry. They don't exist. Like it's, to me, that's a dumb question. That like those good people who do bad things don't exist. So it's like you're wasting your time with that question, even if you like it.
You explain that because there are no good and bad people. They don't exist. I get
so that. I think it's I almost said phallic question. It's a fallacy.
It's a flaccid question.
It
falls flat.
It's a flaccid phallic question. It's flat penis. No, I don't know. I think that more if you can adjust your like the way that you see people to see them as like nothing. Basically see them as nothing. And then see that they get to participate in a thing that makes them something.
I have a challenge for you.
Okay.
It would help us both if you could, because I don't know that I can. What would your version of the question be? So you get to ask a different question. So omit the fact that there are good and bad people. What's your comparable question that doesn't have any presuppositions that you disagree with? How to get closer to God? Like, what's the question?
That's probably it's reductionist, but that's the important question. Because it's like
a zip file question.
Right.
You can't ask a question because the question has questions in it. That's why I liked the question the way I worded it, because it opens a lot of doors.
Yeah, but it's so.
But I understand why you dislike it, because you disagree with it completely on its face, more or less. So therefore, it's a shit question.
I think it's terrible. Yes.
It's like whatever. I don't need more analogies. So okay, would your question for now, until you thought about it more, be how do you get closer to God?
Yes, that's the penultimate question. Now here's why it's easy for me to think of it this way, is because I hear and I actually sympathize, and I can kind of align myself with a lot of the like theologians and philosophers who talk about people as though they're animus possessed. Like they talk about people like they are possessed by spirits when just about their daily lives. And we would call those spirits feelings. And I actually really like that viewpoint, where it's like you are something, and you are something by itself, but then these spirits inhabit you temporarily. And then you have technically control over them. You can say, no, this one's not welcome. Like, it's like a feeling. They almost think of it like this spirit is not welcome in me more. Like you could think sadness spirit inhabits you, and it's an overwhelming feeling basically. But you can force that spirit out of you and allow for the spirit of joy to inhabit you. That's one example. But I like the idea of people being by themselves. They are what they are. They can control themselves and they can control what's in them, but they are by themselves nothing. So for me, it makes sense for me to say, that's easy. We're not good or evil. We can just be closer to the good or closer to the evil. And then in being closer to good things can't help but happen because of your proximity to good. And conversely, if you are closer to the evil, then you're just going to be just a constant outpouring of rage and malice and malevolence. It's like, to me, it's really obvious to think of it like that. So there's not good people who are inherently good and do bad stuff, or the inverse.
Do you want to get into this more? Because if you want to, I'll go at it more. I can keep going.
You can?
Yeah, it's really.
This feels like more important than doing the other stuff we were going to do.
Okay, if you want to, I can.
Do you want to do this instead of the watching show?
Oh, no.
How about we do one watching show episode after this?
Oh, let's not worry about this. Let's not worry about this. Prioritize this right now.
Okay.
If you want to get into this is what
I think it's important. If you don't think it's important,
which is funny because you didn't want to talk about negative things at the start, and I was like, "Well, we talked about negative things."
Yeah.
And here we are. So okay. So I'm going to try to explain a visual representation of what I think our ideas are.
Okay.
So imagine, the old game Pong.
Yes.
So you have, but it's not horizontal; it's vertical. So you have two halves of a rectangle. It's a white. There's a center line, and here's two white rectangles, whatever.
Okay.
And now we have little people figurines. What do they look like? Dots. Let's make it super easy. They're dots. It doesn't matter how many there are. Let's make it easy. 10. We have 10 people represented by dots. And the right side has a plus sign outside of it. That's the positive side. This battery, whatever, negative side.
Okay.
Now that's basic and easy. What I am seeing is positive is green, negative is red. The signs are, but the square is white.
Okay.
The people are white. How I've been seeing it is if you cross over the line, their dot becomes green. If they cross over the line, their dot becomes red. You see it as the dots are white all the time. There can be, I think, they are not part of good or bad. So good and bad and people represented by color.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to trap you.
You're close. That's a good question.
So
I like
that's
that.
Not a question. It's just a crude visual representation of the differences we see between good and bad people.
I'll correct it though. Okay. I think you're close to right. Let's say you're the white dot and you go over to the green side. Slowly, you're going to watch your white dot become green.
It's white,
right?
But
So
morals are denoted by color,
right?
The morals exist outside of this white box. That's why there's a green plus sign, a red negative sign outside of the box, to show direction.
Okay, so the accurate way to think about my viewpoint is you think about your negative and your positive side. This is green. This one's red. Your white dot, you go towards the green side. You're still white, but the longer you stay over there, your white dot starts becoming more and more green. And eventually, if you stood there, you'd just be green.
Okay, now here's a question.
You would be wholly filled with good. Now, you take that green dot, you move it over to the red side, you're going to see little red pixels start introducing themselves.
But you can have a green, that means you can have a green dot on the red side.
Yep.
But here's my question. It sounds like you're saying you are no longer white or green. You are a whitish green, whatever. Is that represented by one dot, or can we introduce a dimension? Because I thought about this earlier, but I was saving it in case you did this. Is it two dots on top of each other? Because people exist outside of morals, like you said. There are no good and bad people. This is the animus on top of them. So what you're seeing, it looks like a light green because it's a green dot over a white dot. Would that be more accurate than saying this is now a light green dot? I don't know if that makes
maybe.
Okay.
Maybe. I don't know.
I think
I actually haven't
based
thought
on what
about
you
that.
said, that is more correct.
Okay. Maybe how about a white border? Like there's always you, and you get to control what's inside you, for example. So let's say you're a fully green dot. You've been at the green side for forever. You go to the red side, and over time, just red starts injecting itself in the green. You can see it mixing and becoming darker color, and eventually the green is completely gone and you're red. That can happen with people, and the other way around too. And I don't know that it takes all that long. It just is like immersing yourself in anything. There's a little bit of time it takes to just like.
Well, for me, I got to clear something else up again.
Yeah.
Mixing of the red and the green and the white. Can we simplify it, or will you vehemently disagree that if you take a green dot person to the red side and the red introduces itself, we're not getting brown. We're literally going from green to red. Because if that's the case, we have to go green to white to red, and here's why. Otherwise, everybody should be brown. Because we all have good and bad. So in order to change color, this green dot has to go from green to white to red. That's what has to happen. Because otherwise, everybody should be brown.
I think
because there are no people with no morals or with no good or bad in them. Unless you think there are people who just are completely detached. You think there are people who no, because if there were, God couldn't judge them.
I think most everybody's brown.
Okay. All right. Well, now we've got to do this, and that's why I have to ask this first. There's a bunch of brown dots on a whiteboard.
Okay.
Because they're mixed with morals. And if they stay on the green side long enough, surrounded by good deeds, doing good deeds, eventually turn green, red. Okay, we got that now?
Okay.
My problem with that is now you have people who are, it's almost a compromise. We have people who are neither good nor bad because they're both.
Okay.
But my problem is if you have somebody on the green side long enough, you have a good person. Maybe they have a little bit bad, but I mean, maybe the best they can hope for is 99.9% green. But to me, that's green.
Yeah.
So now the problem is I don't think it agrees with you because you said morals exist, and I don't know if we're still doing the 2-layer thing where it's a color on top of a white dot. But, I hit the wrong button. But to me, that means you have good people and bad people. But you said you don't think there are good people and bad people. So are you willing to say that a green dot is not a good person?
I think it's reducing it to say it's a good person.
I realize this is a crude representation, but I'm trying to explain the way I think about it.
Yeah, no, I get it. And then you could also, this would be an interesting to introduce into it. And I already know my answer for this, but I'd be curious what you think. But where redemption comes into it, or salvation, or which people get to go to heaven, where that comes into how green of a dot you have to be to get there. And I know my answer, and it's pretty straightforward. But for example, if you were looking at it from the lens of you took this person off of the scale entirely and you looked at it and you're like, that's a good person. It's green. And there's a tinge of red in there, but yeah, that's green. And yeah, you could say that, but I mean, strictly from a standpoint of green is its own giant dot, and red is its own giant dot in this scenario. The green dot, you just absorb the color of. The green dot is God in this scenario, or the ethic, anyway,
good moral,
the alpha, the good,
it's
the
about
morals,
good and bad.
yes,
morals,
the alpha moral. So for you to say that person's good, that they're green, that's saying that thing is this person, which I guess in some sense you could say. So, but I don't think that. I think that's doing a disservice to the green, like the God in this area. It's like they're green. That's God. It's like, well, no, that's not God. They got a lot of God in them, in that scenario, and that makes them good. I don't know. I can see why you could reduce that to good person. I just don't think it's fully accurate.
I offered you this before, but the idea that it's animus, whatever you want to call it, morals exist outside of the person. The person is a white dot. The green, the red, it's a layer on top.
Yeah.
If we go with that, then you can omit good and bad people. They're just people. We can introduce that again, but now we have to explain. And it may be really simple. This dot on top of them, the color, this green dot, it's a brown dot, whatever it is. Morals are gray. Actually, that'd be better, wouldn't it, if it was gray instead of brown? It's literally a gray area, representation of morality. I know it'd be brown, but
yeah, okay.
Brown is easier as far as like empirically mixing colors. So we'll stick with brown, but it's a gray area moral wise.
Yeah.
We should probably, to benefit your point, the idea that there's 2 dimensions, morals exist outside of the person. So that's the closest I've gotten so far in trying to accommodate both of our beliefs, but we obviously aren't agreed. And maybe I'm looking at it wrong because I still see good and bad people, but that's what it looks like when you're looking from one dimension or from a 2-dimensional view.
Another way to say it is, let's say, imagine you were to pick up, there's a person who's been just absorbing all these colors for years. Who knows? There's some shade of brown or gray. And you pick them out of it and you were to leave them out of it for a while. Eventually all the color would drip out and they'd become white again. They're naturally white. That's what they are.
Well,
if you remove everything from them.
Are you holding to the 2-dimension thing?
I am in this scenario, but if you were to remove it entirely,
and to try to clarify it for you and the people,
right?
This color on top of you is the spirit
that inhabits
morality,
you,
right?
Yes.
But it's not you. It works and lives within you, like the Force,
right?
Okay,
the Force. Say it all like annoying.
Now go ahead and
yeah.
Because okay.
So this is the fun part. This is the cool part about Christianity. It's the first religion like this, and I think that's why it's the best one. So like,
isn't it the only religion? At least it was when it was made, but I don't know if it isn't the only religion that says you can't save you.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's my favorite part about it, and this is the other favorite part I have when it comes to the topic of. So in the end, I'm guessing God would just pick all the people who end up on the green side, right? And I don't think that's right.
No, it's not. I agree with you there.
I don't think that that's right at all. I think how actually it works is God says, all you dots, there's this little basket at the bottom. If you want to come here, you come here. You can just accept this basket for free. And so there's red dots and green dots and brown dots. There's the reddest dot possible can go sort themselves in that basket. And at the end of it all, when this Pong game is closed out, these people they're free. And then all the colors leave them and they're just themselves again. They're the white thing again. They get to, they're just people again.
Using this visual metaphor, I can explain what I believe, and some of it I think you'll agree with, and some of it I know you won't.
Yeah.
So my current operating system, I say that because I have this big question.
Yeah.
The way the game is built.
Yeah.
The way the game is built, you go to one side, you're green, you go to one side, you're red. Enough bad deeds will make you a bad person. 50, 51%, whatever. That's literally just, what's the word? It's straight. But there are green dots on the red side. There are good people, and I'm not willing to define that, who do bad things. In rapture, whatever, God says, okay, all you green dots all over the board, regardless of your deeds, good people can come with me. So I know we disagree because I think that there are good and bad people. And I also think, I guess how they're selected is different than what you think. I didn't understand the dropout at the bottom, really.
Well, I guess mostly what I'm saying is ultimately, because, boys, it's tough to explain. I don't think that God looks around and says green people, no matter whether you're on the red side or the green side. I think it's if there's this separate category. It's the people who have accepted Jesus in this scenario. I hate saying that.
Me too, but that is literally my simplest
says,
definition of a green dot. They've accepted God into their heart and all that.
Well, here's why I don't think that's necessarily the case, is because I know plenty of people who can live in a biblical way outside of accepting Jesus into their heart. They just have found and discovered the utility of truth in their lives. And so it's like
So you think there are people who could live like saints, but never know God and go to heaven, basically.
I don't know about the heaven
I think
part.
that's a fair thought. Like, what about, and there's fast to that question is what happens to infants or stillborns? They go to hell? Like, why would God,
No.
It's a difficult question, but a fair question. I think we talked about it once, but the idea that you dislike this for the same reason I don't think I feel comfortable with it. The green dots are people who have accepted God as their savior.
I don't think that's...
What about... Exactly. It doesn't feel quite right. But that is the operating system I'm on.
So in this scenario...
were saying... I hope I wasn't putting words in your mouth.
Okay.
I'm repeating myself. You think that not everybody who gets accepted into heaven knows God. And I think I believe that. There are good people who don't deserve to go to hell. I don't like that idea, but maybe they do.
Okay, well,
I don't know.
I don't know what I think about hell and heaven in general. I have to think about that a lot more.
Let's try not to. Sorry, I don't want to get too off topic. I'm just. So I'm intentionally keeping this complicated to keep myself interested.
Well, and it needs to be because it is complicated too.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think another reason that your proclivity to conservatism might be a disservice is because you often will neglect nuance for simplicity. And that's why you want to sort people into good and bad. And it's like, yeah, that's technically true. There might be 51% good, but that's not very nuanced approach. Like they're very, very close to average there.
Hey, I'll tell you what, if I was making this game, that's not how I'd design it. But based on what I know, that's the best representation I can come up with.
Well, here's what I think about salvation per se. So like when Christ is on the cross and he's next to the two robbers and one of them says, will you save me? Will you think of me in heaven or whatever he says. And he says, there's going to be a place for you at my left hand.
I tell you, this day you will be with me in paradise.
So this guy almost certainly was a red dot. Like that was his whole thing, is that he's never done anything good in his life. But at that moment, he became a green dot because he accepted God. No, I don't think, in my mind, that's how I saw it. No, I think God picks red dots too.
Okay.
I think
that's
my controversial opinion.
Let's just stay on this topic because I got like two questions.
Okay.
What would it have taken? Oh, that's not fair. Why was he a red dot?
Because that was the side I don't know. This isn't me knowing what that guy was like. I'm just saying in that particular case, like this person, you know, I'm not going to feel, I don't feel comfortable saying how I know. This is just my theory about things. I think
sure,
that
I call it operating system.
Right. So I think my theory is that there are plenty of red dots who have not done very many good things in their life that God has grace for. And he's like, yep, that person's coming to heaven with me. Or however that works, however heaven is, paradise.
I'll tell
They're
you,
going to be
like
at peace
the
from the
idea.
guy. Well, I think it's right. I think that's the whole point of the free gift of salvation. It's like, yeah, you could be like, it's paid for. That's the idea of it. It's like, you could be the reddest dot. It doesn't matter. Ultimately. Now what here's the penalty of being a red dot, for example. If you're a green dot, this is so silly, and I hope people are following and it's not stupid sounding.
I'm following, so I hope they're following too.
If you're a green dot, the benefit is that things go pretty well as they can in a shitty world for you. Basically, it's like you're not
morality wise,
right? Like and just in life, like people enjoy green dots more. Like green dots get things done and things like, it's just like you reap the benefits of the universe that's on your side since you're in tune with it. Now, red dot, you're just stumbling at every turn because nothing is going right for you. It's your own fault. It's like, well, that's punishment in itself. So I don't think God looks at red dot and says, I like you less. It's like, no, he probably has just as much sympathy for that guy as he does for the guy who's done everything right. He's like, well, I made you and you've not done anything right, but boy, I love you. That's like his thing.
He said like 3 different things.
Okay.
I'm not going to get into them because it's just too many.
Do you think that's close to right?
We started with a tree. We took a branch on that tree, conversation wise, and every once in a while you'll say 3 other long branches. And if we're getting too far from the stump, I have to ignore those.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to stay on this branch and then the little twigs that aren't too far from the stump.
Okay.
Going back on the tree. Not very important. Forgot to say this. I think that once you have become a green dot, naturally you will gravitate toward the green side. Or specifically, if green is you've accepted God into your heart, you're saved, you can go live a life of sin, which I don't like, and I was going to get into that. You should want to do good. You should naturally move this way.
Oh, I could see that. I don't know. I don't know if it's cart before the carriage or however, or cart before the horse or whatever they say. That's what I don't know, is if it's egg before chicken or whatever. Because like,
it wasn't really important. I just remembered that.
Does your polarization flip when you accept Jesus? Do you just red, green, and you automatically suck yourself over there?
Not suck. I think you're naturally
drawn.
Gravitate. Now, maybe it's not fast, but naturally. It's like a literal electric polarization. But it's not like violent. It's just like you slowly, you tend... Like it's like gravity, almost like it tilts a little bit. That's your side.
Yeah,
you could not much difficulty. You could switch at any point.
You know what? In this analogy, what's natural is to think about this board, this good and evil. It's actually probably accurate to think of it at a tilt constantly, where it constantly just tilts towards the red side. Where naturally, if you were to just leave it alone, you would just fall toward the red side, and that's why most people stack up there. And it's like kind of a struggle to get towards the green side. But if you find your way there, then you become magnetized to it, like you're saying.
Because
I don't know.
Visually, that's how it's going on. But with this, morality exists outside of you.
Yes.
So maybe you could say the red side is larger.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
I like it the way it is. I was just saying, I was using the tilt to describe your natural, and it's not about, the box is a box. It's life. It's static. Yeah. And anyway, you said,
but it is an important distinction. That one is a tough one for me philosophically. I don't know if it's you're a red dot until you are a Christian. I don't think my natural inclination is not to think that way. My natural inclination is to think everything is a little bit more nuanced than that. And it's like, yeah, well, you start off as a white dot and you're kind of empty. And then if you're lucky, you're taught good things as a kid, but it doesn't really matter what you're taught, because if you find yourself on the green side, you're going to absorb some green, you're going to get some good info. And if you yourself wander into the red side, you're going to be full of red. I don't know. That's my natural inclination. And then being saved or salvation, like that's separate to me. It's like, that's why I said, imagine like, here's the game. And then outside the game is like an extra little screen. And then if you sort yourself into the screen, then you're good to go, whatever color dot you are. That's kind of how I tended to think of it. But it sounds like what you're saying is what I was saying before, where it's like you start off as a white dot and then you kind of are a red dot. But then as soon as you accept Jesus or whatever, then you flip in your green dot, and then you can still live in the red side, but you're naturally drawn towards it. Like that's a more hopeful way to see it, but that's not my experience. So
let's take this apart.
Okay.
Being saved makes you a green dot. We have problems with it.
I don't think that's the case. Yeah.
Right. So I'm not comfortable with it, but I believe what the Bible says as far as if you accept God into your heart, you're saved. That means worst case scenario, you go on and what's actually the worst case scenario that I actually believe I'm willing to like lay my life down for. If okay, this one's fair enough. If you are like a serial killer, just, the worst person, and then before the end you accept God, you're saved. Now, I may not be comfortable with that, but that's what I believe. So the other example of that would be a really good person who just does great things and doesn't care for God or anything. It doesn't matter to him. He's just a good person. Everybody loves this person. He's done nothing but good. But specifically, if he denies God, says, I don't believe in him, I don't think he's saved. He's got no place in the kingdom, and I don't think you're comfortable with that. But yeah, that was where I was. That's the line where I can draw like the belief on either end. I can make them more extreme, but that's about as extreme as I could make them to really. That's what I really think. I don't like to believe it. I'm not comfortable with it. For example, less extreme, but I use the extremes first. I don't like the idea that I believe based on that operating system that I can just be a bad dude. I can just fuck around and do whatever the fuck I want, live for myself for the most part, and go to heaven at the end and just check out. I don't like that idea. I like to think that helps me to gravitate toward being a good person, but I believe that effectively. So why shouldn't I just fuck around? You can attack it now.
There's like two questions there. And
there's a lot.
The answer to that question, why you shouldn't fuck around, is because it only hurts you. Like the green things to do are the things that actually like preserve you and protect you from like pain. So like all those other things, the red dot things, those actually hurt you as like a person, or it hurts people around you, or it hurts your community or your, the world. It hurts everything.
Here's a challenge to myself. I haven't asked, I'm asking for both of us. Imagine you're saved, and then you don't actively reject God. You don't say, I take it back, but you, what was it? Shoot. My brain just like
it's still very complicated and tough for me because I don't know that I think that's Family Guy makes a joke about the live your life terribly, and then the very last second it shows Osama bin Laden.
Yeah.
He's like, put your hands up. I accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. And then he goes to heaven.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, that was a close one. They make that joke, and
I think I saw that. That was great.
Yeah, it's silly.
But that's a great representation of an extreme.
Right.
That like, are you ready to defend that or say you believe that?
I'm not. But it's not mine to defend in that case.
And I'm trying to put it into the most.
Yeah, I get it. The extreme.
No. In a situation where you have to choose, like you're standing before God, right? I don't know what it is. You're standing before God, and He goes, "What do you believe?" He's not going to remind you what the Bible says,
right?
And you're going to go, he doesn't. Are you gonna say that to him? Like, what do you actually believe? What are you going to actually act on?
I have problems.
You may not like it, may not be comfortable, but what do you actually like? This is how the world is.
Well, I just have problems with the presupposition. Well, I have problems.
Like, it's hard. There is no good answer.
My problem is mostly with the idea that you can just accept God in your heart. Like, I just don't understand what that means.
That's a simplification of it.
But you know, if you extrapolate that and you parse that apart, you pull apart, what does that mean? Does that mean to me, the best thing I can think of what that means is you start living in truth and in his ways.
The
and
best
you pursue
argument
that friendship.
The best argument against that is even the demons believe in God.
Right.
So
right.
what does that mean to accept God as your savior?
Right.
It's
a
question.
It's so reductionist when people are like, oh yeah, I'm a Christ follower. It's like, okay, I actually like Christ follower better than Christian.
It's a bit more descriptive.
Right. Well, like
even Christian is like a stereotype.
Right.
There's a lot of
right. And I don't know. It's tough. It's hard to even call myself a Christian. I believe that I am, but it's like you wouldn't tell.
Yeah.
So that becomes a problem.
This is another topic I don't want to go too far into, but I hate any description of what you might be. If you say you're conservative or liberal, it just does not define you at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost ineffective. If
Right.
anything, it's more, what's the word, misinformative than informative, because
Right.
it covers too much that isn't you. So to say you're a Christian just doesn't do it. One thing that you might know about Christians to be true might be true about that person. So yeah, I have a problem saying I'm Christian because it just comes with a bunch of, that's not accurate.
Yeah. Well, it does have a lot of baggage now, unfortunately, but that's not to say that I'm not like a fervent believer in God, because I am, but in a lot of ways, like when you were talking about the person who lives holy, but he doesn't know God intimately, in some sense, and this might sound non-biblical. You're gonna have to forgive us if we say sacrilegious stuff, but I almost believe those two can't be independent from each other. To live holy is to live godlike, because that's what God is. He's holy. So
that means you're saved. It means you're saved by deeds. It means if you're good.
No. It just means that you actually know God better than all the books that tell you about God. It's like you can know God because God is separate than the Bible and then prayer. It's like God is this personality that you can inhabit. It's like you can allow to inhabit you more accurately. It's like,
isn't it the green spirit?
Yes.
That covers you.
Exactly. So if you're a person who never heard the name Yeshua, like you just are a person,
right?
And then but you're doing all the things that the Bible says to do, and you communicate with the ethic, the overall ethic, which I consider to be God.
You think good in a way. I'm being a bit reductionist.
Right. It's very reductionist.
Good works are God.
Yes.
I'm being reductionist, but
right,
it's the idea, it's the extension of, I get that.
Right. And so in that sense, it's like you can know God that way. And it's not because you're doing good stuff. It's because you're living in that truthful way.
Or you inhabit, or the spirit inhabits you.
Right. You allow the spirit
yeah.
in your life. And some people call that the Holy Spirit. It's like the spirit of things that are holy. You know,
that's my favorite idea that I've been introduced to tonight.
What's that?
Well, because, like I said, I'm not comfortable with the idea that an otherwise morally excellent person won't go to heaven because they don't know God.
Yeah.
That seems like a really, and it's easy to accept. Not that I'm accepting it. It's easy to accept because I'm comfortable with it, but it's easy to accept because it seems to make sense.
Yeah. I also this is just going to, now it's going to sound like I'm counteracting my own points, but this is not to go so far as to say that you can just do good stuff and know God. It's like, those are different things. And plus, good things is not the same as the things God wants you to do, because God does all sorts of weird stuff throughout the Bible, and those were good things, but they didn't seem like it at the time. Good is sort of a weird ethic. Like there's some good guidelines, like don't lie and stuff, but we were talking about earlier. Sometimes the exact truth is not the best truth. It's like there's an ethical truth. There's the more superior truth, and that's the God truth, in my opinion. Like it. By definition, God is the best choice, not the choice of, like, whatever he would pick is the right one. So if you're in tune with that, you're going to be making the right choices, whether they seem weird by the book or not. It's like, yeah, that guy's given up his.
Well, that was my idea for gravitating toward the green side. If you're green, you just naturally would be drawn because you'll operate in that way, that direction. And
I don't know. It's
I
can imagine
I
that,
like because it's obviously very complicated, and they introduce a bunch more questions, branches. The reason I like that visual representation is because the third dimension, the fact that the spirit exists outside the person, is the third dimension in that analogy to show that it's complicated. That's like a twist at the end. Of course, there's another dimension that we can't see, the fourth dimension, and these are the questions we can't answer. Like we're drinking, it's like we're doing our best to represent this thing that we can't understand, and the representation itself is aware of the fact that it's super simple and that there's more we can't.
Here's the good news about that. This perspective about your game, your plus side, your negative side, your green, your red, right? If God doesn't exist, and if God as a personality doesn't exist, well, obviously the green side still exists. So say for example, and you can let that goodness inhabit you. I don't even like really theorizing that God doesn't exist because I just believe it so strongly. But let's say you're a person who's just like, no, I refuse to believe in the big guy in the sky. It's like, well, you believe in the overall ethic. You might not name it God, but that's what I name it. So it's like behaving in the ways, like getting yourself on that green side, it only helps you and it helps everybody around you. So it's it's a desirable place to be no matter what your belief is and your ethical, your philosophy in life is.
That's an interesting person that I'm sure exists. The idea that someone who believes there's no man in the sky. However, I believe in good and bad. I believe in good and evil. That always has baffled me. But I'm certain they exist.
Yeah.
I say, well, then why would you bother with morals?
Right.
But
well, I don't believe in the big guy in the sky. Yeah.
Connected to the things we've said, you think that person is saved or could be or could go to heaven because they've lived in the goods by the Holy Spirit, whatever it is. They could, right?
Well, I just don't know what to think about heaven and stuff. I don't know. I'm not the kind of guy who just is like, yeah, the rapture and then everyone gets sucked into heaven and that's up there somewhere. I don't know. Heaven to me.
You jumped a branch, but that's okay.
I know. Cause you said this person can go to heaven and I'm like, well, in the sense that heaven is a place that's higher. It's an elevated state of your spirit. Yes, I think that everybody can go to heaven in that way. I don't know what I think about a physical heaven place. I think it exists at least spiritually. It's just like it's too many questions. It's too complicated. But
dude,
the simple part, thankfully, is like allowing that the spirit of truth to inhabit you. You notice a difference right away in your life, and I don't know.
I don't know if this is a good analogy, but it just tickled me. That's why I laughed like Tommy was so. I'm going to try to explain this to you. I have to use with my hands. It's John Wick. Okay, so this board we've been looking at, we've introduced that there's a second layer. It's the spirit, whatever. Imagine drawing on a piece of paper, the board, because it is two-dimensional. And there's the whiteboard, and then there's the dots on another. Well, it turns out that's three pieces of paper, three of them. There's three boards. One's above and one's below. That's heaven and hell. In the middle board, you'll have green and red. The top board, there only is green. The bottom board, there's only red, if heaven and hell exist. Crude, but we've introduced that dimension again. Okay, you got that. It's pretty simple, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, as it relates to that analogy, what problems do you have with heaven and hell?
I can't prove them. That's my main problem.
Can't prove them. Interesting. You want to hear one of my thoughts on heaven and hell, since we're
sure,
because we've been fucking around that whatever branch that was for a while. I'm okay with jumping.
Sure.
So
we have talked about heaven and hell, and we theorized how it could be a place, like literally, and we talked about the probability of that and stuff.
Well, maybe we could start by quickly talking about what we might agree on. You think you can't prove them, okay? But as far as heaven and hell goes, I think they are actual, more or less physical places.
You experience them physically.
Experience them physically. I think so.
Yeah.
I think. Now, if heaven and hell existed, is that what you think? Is that your idea?
Well, to me, physical is so specific and it's so restrictive that if I imagine heaven, that
physically, like the Matrix, whatever, but it's a physical place. maybe I'm not willing to say it's a physical, like it's in this universe on a planet physical, but it's
I would say you would experience it literally.
okay. Yeah, sure. We think of it that way.
Okay.
Maybe
And I picked the word literally specifically because you might picture it as though it were literature, like you're reading it and then you can imagine it. And anyway, I might not be physically, but you literally do experience it.
I introduced the analogy of the pieces of paper and the boards because I've always thought that heaven and hell might be, it's like another dimension, another reality. It doesn't exist in this universe. I always kind of thought that, like, I don't think it's a physical place you could travel to. It's not possible because it doesn't exist in this dimension. I think it's a physical place in a different dimension. Closest example I could think of is the Tesseract in Interstellar. That's how I've always thought of it. So these boards, above and below, heaven and hell, we can't interact with them.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I've thought of them. Okay. So you can't prove them. Here's the problem I have with, well, heaven and hell. I feel like I can't afford not to, because the consequence of living as if there are no consequences is I'm going to be a bad person. Now, even if that's true, is that proper? Is it right to be motivated negatively and think, if I don't get my shit together, I'm going to hell? Is that actually a good, it comes back to another question. Is that a bad person doing good things?
Theoretically, that could be the whole reason all religions were invented, is a negative.
I assumed that. Yeah. I assumed. It's more or less a question as to what's the purpose of good and evil, but one end of the heaven and hell thing is I can't afford not to believe in hell, because if I don't, then why the fuck should I just kill myself? I'd rather not play this game.
I know you've said that before.
Which is dark, but like that's one way of representing why I believe in hell. I do believe in heaven and hell, but that wasn't really the issue before. The reason I said that I have to believe in hell, it's I have to believe. I didn't say this; it was implied. I have to believe that if I kill myself, I will go to hell.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't say that just now, but anyway, that's not important to this. Because if you can't prove them, okay, bringing it to you. If you can't prove them, why do you believe them?
I don't know that I do.
Interesting. From my super
I'll tell you
boring
what.
brain, can you put a percentage on it? Is it 50-50?
I don't know. It's
Okay.
really close to
That's fine.
100. It's just like, that's one of those unknowns that I can't know until I experience it. And I do plan on experiencing it. It's just like,
you can't know God is real then, right? Of course, I don't know, but I believe.
right.
So do you believe in God more than you believe in heaven and hell?
Yeah.
Interesting. Because for me,
Well,
maybe
okay,
I'm wrong.
so
It's the same
I
issue
have
of
a
why would
problem
you believe in, why would you not believe in God but believe in morals? For me, you don't get one without the
I
other.
know, but I have a problem with the word believe the same way I have a problem with those other words. Because it's like, we use that word flippantly. It's like the word know. It's like you don't know
Believe
anything.
is a participation award
Sure.
in the pessimistic, crude way.
It's like if I
what
had
is
to
that?
guess is what believe means to me. If I had to guess is what believe means. And that's unfortunate because believe, if I really believed it, I'd act
I love
differently.
that. Believe means if I had to guess.
Right.
That's what it means.
It's what it literally means. If it
why I
doesn't
said
change the way you
I
behave.
have to assume. I have to believe. I have to guess that.
Yep. I thought about a lot of things. You were talking about like there's utility in believing that hell exists because it prevents you from making poor choices. It's like the possibility of consequence prevents you from poor choices. It's negative
Motivation
influence.
and positive motivation, which is I get to go to heaven.
Right. Well, and some people need that. In one sense, you could think of it as, from an existential standpoint, you could think of killing yourself as it makes things worse, simply. And I think you believe that. It's like it makes things worse for you and for other people and for the world. That's what happens when someone kills themselves.
I believe hell's worse.
Okay, well, do you believe that killing yourself makes things worse for other people? I think that's a pretty easy question.
It could. I mean,
I think it
for
does.
Some
for
people
sure.
it would, but
Oh gosh, you're in trouble.
No,
I just mean, okay, First of all, the answer is yes. It makes it worse for everybody if someone kills themselves because there's less people.
I'm not trying to argue with you, and I can add to your point. I don't want anyone to die ever. But I'm special, and I feel like I'm an exception. No, I'm bummed if anybody dies. I don't want anybody to kill themselves, you know? So
it's not about being bummed. It's like, does it actually make things worse?
Of if I think no one else should die, because I think I'd be bummed about it, or what did you say? People would be sad about it.
That's not what I said.
Then I don't get to die either.
I said it makes things worse.
Right. I think it'd be worse if somebody died.
Right.
So therefore, by that reasoning, I shouldn't die, and at the very least, I should think that it would be worse if I died.
Well, in the same way that a negative influence should, in this scenario, scare you away from making the choice to kill yourself because it would make things worse. It's just interesting from a more general perspective that why we do anything negative at all. Because it's like, if we do anything like that, it makes things worse. And it's like, if all it does to kill yourself is make things worse for everybody, and it also makes things worse for everybody for you to lie or steal or yell at people, be rageful, I don't know, envious or prideful, like all those things make it worse for everybody. And in that sense, if you have an aversion to one bad choice, it seems useful to adopt a utilitarian kind of view about all bad things like that and say, well, I shouldn't do that because it makes it worse for everybody, the same way that killing myself would.
I don't think you really believe that. I try to give you the benefit of the doubt.
Really believe what?
I try to give you the strong case for your side, which is, well, I don't want other people to. The case against yours is, what about a guy who's in the hospital, chronic pain every day, can't get fixed? Really easy just to unplug. I've been here for like however long. How much suffering? This is physical, literal suffering. How much suffering do you have to endure before this is going to hurt so many more people? There's an extreme to either side.
Yeah, well, there's also,
according to what you said, I don't really think you believe this. Certainly there is a breaking point, I would think. Because according to what you said, I forgot the word. Pain bad for other people?
Yeah. Well, here's an interesting thing, and I don't know that I believe this, but there is an argument to be made, and this might be the one I'd have to adopt, but that us getting in the way of death isn't immoral. Like say if a guy's in chronic pain and he would die without assistance and all he'd have to do is unplug to die, then he probably shouldn't be plugged in. There's an argument to be made.
He wouldn't die without assistance. He'll die eventually, like in 20 years. Should he stay alive? I mean, like, would you, if that happened to that guy, you walked in and he killed himself. That stupid fucker. It was so insensitive of him to kill himself. Now all these people are going to suffer because of that. Like, what about this guy? At some point, you can't pass judgment.
Well, I don't know that you can ever pass judgment because it's not our place to about anything. It's not really about judgment. It's about, did it make it worse for everybody? Yeah.
I don't think it made it worse for everybody.
Well,
I think he's better off.
I don't know. I don't know about that.
I mean, yeah, well, let's both give this guy the benefit of the doubt because we haven't been in his position. That's how I have to look at it. Like I think we're pretty good at considering each other's end.
Yeah.
What about this guy's end?
I don't know. I don't necessarily like taking the exception to.
It's not. It shouldn't be anyone's place to cheat death or decide when is their time.
I'm not saying that either. I'm not saying I believe that. I'm just saying. Okay, here's what I'm saying. I don't think we should use the exception to dictate the rule either, because you're talking about an exceptional circumstance where there's a guy who's in constant pain.
Well, that's how you test them, and then we work backwards.
Well, that's true. That's true. Okay. Yeah. Well, then let's do that. So, in some sense, does life deal an unfair lot? Yeah. Some people get it really rough, and some people don't. Now, what's your responsibility with your unfair lot?
Well, I know how I operate, which is. You're not the same, but if in that extreme, I don't think I'd kill myself if I was him.
Okay. Why?
Say that. Because there's something worse if I do. That's why. Because I believe I'm going to go to hell.
Okay. Well, that aside, you live with chronic pain forever and you have the option to kill yourself. What do you do?
What do you mean? Aside.
I'm saying you.
You mean assume I don't believe in hell? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll just kill myself.
Yeah, it's easier for you to say that, but why?
Because it would be easier. Be better.
Okay. Now, what would you think that's the right thing to do?
Well, assuming that assuming that.
Okay, there you go. Well, why? Why not?
Because I don't believe that going to hell. I don't believe in heaven and hell.
Okay, you're kind of. I wanted you to prove my point for you. Okay, so here's my point. I'm trying
to answer honestly. I don't know.
I know. I get it, and I get it. I'm not telling you did it and you did bad. Okay, so here's my point. It's that you have a responsibility to bear the burden of life. That's what life is about.
I think you should.
Right. You don't. It's the same.
I think you should, but if that guy over there did kill himself, I couldn't be mad at him.
Right, but it's not about mad at you. It's like, is that guy living properly? Is that guy living in the narrative story of what life is about? What life is about is persevering against the things that cause you pain.
Is it possible to say both? Is it possible to say that over his body and then also go, but I understand why he did what he did. Is it possible?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Because
let's say it's possible.
Well, this is the exact same conversation about the campfire, the 3 men in the campfire. One of them checked out early. They didn't go see the monster.
Yeah, that's how I see.
This is the same thing.
Suicide.
And so,
that's
so you're defending this guy the same way you defend somebody who would stay by the campfire.
I'm saying I understand. You just said we can take both positions, but I agree with you there. That is the worst thing you can do is to abject responsibility, and I agree that is your responsibility to stay alive and live the best life possible, and that means not killing yourself.
Right, but again, I'm not judging people who would make that choice because it's not my place to anyway. But it is an observation that it makes everything worse objectively. It does. Because for him, if he was able to press through his pain and carry on and do good with his life despite it, then that would be better for everybody.
We're getting close now. We're on this end of the spectrum. We're really whittling it down. We're between this guy doesn't believe in heaven and hell. He's got a moral responsibility to stay alive.
Let's leave the extremities out of it.
We're on this end. There's like a pinch that we disagree on.
Okay.
This guy doesn't believe in heaven and hell, but we agree as observers of this guy in the hospital that he has a responsibility to stay alive. He shouldn't kill himself. We both agree that if he did kill himself, we couldn't pass judgment, but it's ultimately the wrong thing. Whatever. We're agreed on that. Here's where the differences happen. You said...
Let me clarify really quick. It's not the wrong thing. It's just not the good thing.
Okay. All right. You said... preferably, ideally he pushes through this, he doesn't kill himself and he gets better and lives a better life. I'm saying, what if he doesn't get better?
Right. I didn't say get better.
In all the whatever you said, sorry, I don't think you said better, but there was an up.
He does good despite how bad it is.
What is
for
good?
him.
Suffering for 20 more years with things that are out of his control.
That's not the good. It's doing other good things. Like, I don't know. He helps other people with pain and stuff. And I
realize this isn't realistic.
I know. But you're getting confused. But
I'm trying to find the line.
Right.
And I think we got closer.
Okay.
So I'm going to push the line again to try to refine it. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to try to have you restate what you said, so I'm paying more attention this time. Because I shouldn't say we agreed. I feel the same way. You said that you agree that you couldn't take both positions as far as it would be less bad or more good, whatever you said, to not kill yourself, whatever. And if this guy who's suffering out of his control kills himself, you can't pass judgment. And you understand why he did it. Okay, now, where is he wrong? Because you said he shouldn't kill himself.
It's not about wrong. It's about less right. Okay. So here, let me explain it again. Back to the campfire. All right. This was like the very first thing we were talking about. It's like, there's the 3 men at the campfire. We all know the one who did the right thing was he faced the monster,
right?
Whether he beat it or not. Mm-hmm. That's the right thing. Right. Now, so whether the other guys did, I don't know if they did was right or not, but we don't care about those people. They aren't the people who are inhabiting the ethic, or they're not enacting the story of creation. The story of creation is fighting what hurts you. So when you don't see that done, it's not good. That doesn't mean it's bad necessarily. I mean, I think anything not good is bad.
Agree. I see it as you quit the game. You didn't complete the game.
Right.
I get that.
And not playing the game is bad.
Yeah.
Right. So that's all. I'm not like, if this guy lives in constant pain, he cuts out early. You know, it's like, okay,
It's like,
he didn't do it.
I know why he quit, but obviously we all wish that if we were
It
in that
wasn't good
position,
for
we'd be the
everybody.
person. We wish that if we were in his position, we'd be the one to see the game through to the end.
Right.
But
Even
not
if
him.
his end is shorter than other people's, it's like it's not. I don't know, because the other thing is that time is so fleeting. I know that's a sorry, what's the word? It's a caricature. That time is fleeting. It's a stereotype. No, it's a trope. It's a goofy thing that people say all the time.
Yeah.
But it's like, that's like, from an eternal perspective, suffering for 80 years, if it was the worst pain of your life, is nothing, really. I mean, it is to you. It's the most real to you.
Yeah, I'm just trying to take the other end. Like,
I know. And I normally do too. I'm just trying to argue in the existential standpoint.
I get your point.
It's like,
I totally agree with your point, by the way. I agree with that end. I'm just trying to work myself over from his end and go, you gotta really say that to him.
Right.
You really gotta say it to your best friend, someone you actually care about, who's suffering beyond your understanding. Like, I just can't.
that's
Like,
one of those
like,
that's interesting.
It's interesting, and I'm just working the problem. If you want to jump off the branch, it's fine. But I'm trying to put myself in. You're the person who's suffering,
Yeah.
and you're like, you hit your breaking point where it's changed one of your moral beliefs, as far as, because you're still alive, you're miserable, and you finally changed your mind. And they're like, I wish I was dead. I know I'm supposed to see it through to the end, but I can't anymore. I just can't.
But
What am I going to say to you? No, you should just see it through the end. I'm being a bit cruel. Would I be right? Would I be right or less wrong, however you want to put it, to motivate you to not kill yourself as you're suffering? Would that be the morally right thing for me to do?
We're getting into like the train car and the switching tracks territory where
No,
you're
we're not.
asking big philosophical
The choice
questions.
isn't mine.
Well, that's another one of those where only in the moment, if you're inhabiting the spirit of truth and you're on God's side and you ask God for guidance, kind of thing. Like, I don't know exactly.
You can say I don't know. That's fine.
I know, but I get the impression that that's a scenario where you tell the truth to your friend, even if it hurts them really bad, and you say,
Okay.
you have to push through, man. If
All
you
right.
quit early, then you don't win. Like, you don't. Maybe you don't lose. Maybe nothing happens. Maybe you just get that relief that you've been longing for. But I know that you can do good yet, even if you're useless.
I want to say that that's
I don't know.
not comfortable, but I totally agree.
Do you?
Yeah, I don't know that I would do that, but like in my soul, that's right.
Yeah. That's kind of a good indicator
Yeah.
to know. Like, yeah, if you hear something, you're like, shoot,
Like,
ouch.
that would
but
hurt to hear, but also that's right. So what am I going to do? That's how I feel about it.
Okay.
I know not everybody would agree. I know a lot of people wouldn't, but
Well,
that's just important between us, because that's where we were starting to disagree, but we got really close to narrowing down the difference on an extreme.
yeah, it was really interesting trying to because I've not thought about the idea that when we were talking about good people doing bad things and stuff, I haven't even, it's been several years now that I've held that opinion that people can't be good or bad, that I haven't had to actually explain it to someone in a while. And it was really interesting me trying to backtrack. I'm like, wait, why do I believe that?
I feel like it actually got easier once I came up with the two-dimensional metaphor or analogy.
Yeah.
I wish we had a physical.
Oh, I wanted to say,
push the dot over here.
you were doing this like a diatribe at some point, and you were kind of on about something, but I thought about something, but it wasn't important to the conversation. It was just an interesting what if.
Did you
But,
remember it just now?
Yeah, I did.
Good.
So when we were talking about heaven and hell, I thought the same way that we thought about what if heaven was a theoretical place. Let's say the Big Bang starts from the center of the universe and everything's expanding
I just
further
assumed
away.
heaven's at the center.
Right. And so we talked about this and how
Yeah.
we theorized that, hey, it's possible that our spirit just gets sucked out of our body and then we are gravitationally pulled to the center of the universe, and that's actually where heaven is or whatever. Because God
maybe.
just created things of nothing and it's from the center.
it's
I don't.
gotta
Who
start-
knows? It's a silly little theory.
Yeah, it's cute.
I don't think I believe that, and I don't think you do either. But in this, technically, it's one of those
It's
possibilities.
possible.
Now, in that same way, I thought about this, and I was like, well, what would hell be in that universe? And it's like, well, maybe you're not tethered to God at the center of the universe, and so instead of getting drawn to the center of the universe and making it there, you just stop where you are, and then the planet leaves you, and you're just stuck in space.
That's fun.
Isn't that scary though?
You're
Literally just stuck in the vacuum of nothing. Eventually, you just see no light. because you're just floating in nothing and be terrifying and cold. And
I don't know
scary.
what the Bible says about hell's location, if anything, but I heard something that I just kind of has taken on to think, oh, that's probably how it is. I assume this now. There was a guy who said he died and then came
Just
back
nothing.
and he went to hell and he got sent back or something like that. And he mentioned in passing, like, this is just how it is. He's mentioning everyone's trying to climb out of hell. And he said you could, and everyone's trying to get to heaven because it's right above you and you can see it. And I was like, oh, interesting idea. You can see, that's what he says, what makes hell so bad. You can see what you can't have. Like, oh, that's a cool idea.
Interesting.
I was like, interesting. And I thought, what about people in heaven looking down at hell? That ruins heaven. Like, can they see it? And if they do, are they dispassionate? Like, I don't know how that works. But the idea that hell is made worse by you can see heaven and you can't reach it. Like,
Scariest description I ever heard of hell is that it's just nothing but you're awake the whole time.
that's actually an SCP.
Right.
It's a nothing dimension.
It's literally you're just floating in the black and it's so quiet that you can't hear anything.
Yeah, it's pretty freaking bad.
I know. That seems worse
But
than...
no, I don't know. I think that plus being on fire would be worse.
Yeah, I don't know about the fire, all that.
I don't think I'd get bored of fire after a while. It would just be boredom plus pain.
I just was thinking about, how gravity works and stuff and everything. And if you just divorce yourself from your body and you became a spirit without any gravity, well, then the earth would just move on. The sun and the earth would just fly on without you.
That's a fun idea too.
And you'd be stuck in just nowhere.
You literally get left behind.
Yeah, in space.
That's a fun idea.
It's scary, actually. Space. I know. But like space is, that would be the last place I'd want to just float around until, forever. It's like, it's beautiful, but it's only beautiful because you're safe, right? If you're just floating there.
To me, that's the second to last place I want to be.
Where's the last place? Underwater?
Hell. No, I thought about that. That's number 3. No, hell is number 1. It's actually worse in every way.
Yeah, I don't know if...
heaven's better than everything you can imagine. Hell is worse than everything you can imagine. Plus some things that we know. Same with heaven. But
I don't know, but I honestly feel like the way that hell gets described to people where there's like torture and stuff. Some people are like, hell yeah, I like some torture.
That's not what I remember the Bible saying. Lake of fire is a simple, straight, perpetual fire.
Yeah,
that's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. I'll take floating in space over fire. I'm being honest. I'm not saying I want to float in space or endless blackness.
Think about it, man.
No, you think about being on fire.
I am thinking about it, but
and between the two, you're going to choose fire. Is what I'm asking.
Space is like so
I'm
cold.
Not arguing
it's like
that.
fire.
Would
it's
you
like
choose?
Cold fire.
Would you choose fire over space?
Yeah, I'd choose fire over space.
This is our biggest disagreement. We need to have this as a whole topic for an episode. Because we're supposed to be, what's the worst hell you can imagine? Like, Zach thinks being on fire is not the worst. Whatever.
At least there's something there with you. In space, there's nothing. It's literally nothing.
It's so, I disagree so bad.
But do you know how bad it would hurt to be in space?
Do you know how bad it would hurt to be on fucking fire?
I've been on fire.
Have you been in space?
No, but it's like way worse. It's way worse. Space is literally just cold. It's so cold that it feels like fire, but the opposite.
Let's cheap out and resolve it quickly. Let's both agree.
Oh my gosh.
Let's both agree that the worst thing.
No, I will not say it's fire.
The worst thing would be being on fire in space.
Okay. Fine.
Okay, shake on it. I don't want to have an episode.
I'm gonna do it begrudgingly.
We can fight later, but for now, that's our part.
I'm gonna look up how cold space is, and then I want you to imagine that would feel way worse than being on fire.
No more. I'm not arguing anymore. I think that's a great conclusion.
How long is that episode? Wow, it's like
space.
One of our longest ones.
It's like hell.
It
took forever.
All of our longest episodes have to do with space in some way.
Yeah, well.
Thanks for joining us in this philosophical discussion.
Sorry that we were so down the whole time. We were trying to avoid that. I'm kidding. I don't think it was down at all.
Contribute to the conversation.
We could get down, but we didn't.
Like, theologically, I'm curious what everybody who listens. If you listen to this whole thing, just like lay out your theology in the comments if you want to. Or at
least just let us know.
It actually would be a good writing practice for you lazy freaking bastard.
Actually, I was going to say, if you got something theological to write there because it'll give us more to disagree about.
Yeah, for sure. Contribute, please, if you want.
Contribute.
Yes. All right. Bye for all time.
Bye.